Funding for Here and Now comes from the listeners of WBUR Boston and MathWorks, creator of MATLAB and Simulink software for technical computing and model-based design. MathWorks, accelerating the pace of discovery in engineering and science. Learn more at mathworks.com. And City Space Productions, WBUR's creative studio for custom podcasts that tell a brand's story to ignite engagement, reach new audiences, or establish thought leadership. WBUR.org/creative studio.
It's Here and Now. We're finally going to get some long-awaited jobs numbers tomorrow. The Labor Department is set to release data from October and November. Remember, those numbers were delayed because of the longest government shutdown in history. Jill Schlesinger, CBS News business analyst and host of Jill on Money, is here on a very consuming news day. So, Jill, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. And what are we going to see tomorrow? What kinds of numbers?
Well, it's going to be a strange report because, as you said, we didn't have government workers to collect the data we need. So we're really focusing on the November jobs report. Probably what happened in October is if we had a report, we would have shown job losses because of a lot of government workers taking early retirement opportunities earlier the year. But now in November, the estimate is somewhere around 30, 40, 50,000 jobs created. And frankly, they're all over the place because some are even thinking that we could see job losses in November. We will have to wait and see. I don't think that this is one of those reports we're going to be able to extrapolate anything major, but maybe compound some themes that we've seen already this year.
Well, and explain what you just said, because for people who don't follow jobs numbers the way you do, like on a whiteboard in your home, I mean, what does that mean? Is it less than are expected? Is it bad news? What is your sense?
How dare you invoke my whiteboard to the public? Okay, so listen, when you look back in time, let's just go pre-pandemic for a second, like the 4 years running up to 2020, 2016 through 2019, the U.S. economy was growing and was adding about 180,000 jobs a month, and the unemployment rate was kind of going down, and we got down to a pretty low unemployment rate, low fours, high threes. And the pandemic hit, it blew all the numbers out of the water because 2020 we lost jobs, 2021 and 22 we added so many jobs. But if you just look at the last couple of years, 23 and 24, the U.S. economy added about 216,000 jobs a month in 2023, 168,000 in 2024. You're hearing me say something like 40 or 50,000 jobs for the month of November. That would be lower than what we've seen throughout this year. The first half of the year, we saw more robust job creation. But in the last half of the year, the job market has cooled. So relative to the history, the November print, if we got a 40 or 50,000, that would be a pretty low number of jobs. And yet the economy is still growing.
Right. Well, but the labor market is what's cooling. And you say this is going to affect the youngest among us the most. How so?
Well, it's so strange because we've been talking a lot about, the unemployment rate is not going up by so much, but there is one group where it is really seeing pretty bad damage from the current labor market, and that is young college graduates who are aged 22 to 27. They are the ones who are having a hard time finding jobs. Now, this is consistent with what we've seen over, say, the last, 5 or 8 years, which is the advantage for having a college degree is not as great as it once was. That said, when you do have a college degree, chances are you have more job stability, you do make more money over your career, but this is the one point in time where we are seeing that young college graduates are not doing as well as young college graduates of a previous generation.
Okay, well, we'll keep an eye on that news. Jill Schlesinger, CBS News business analyst, host of Jill on Money. Again, Jill, thank you so much.
And owner of a great whiteboard of jobs.
That's right. You take care.
Take care.
It's Here and Now.
I'm All Things Considered host Craig Wright. Radio IQ has concluded the Winter Fund Drive, and with your help, we surpassed the goal and raised over $60,000 and welcomed more than 100 new members. To all that gave this week or immediately after the government rescission, and to all that have given in the past, thank you so very much for your support. With your help, we'll be here in the weeks to come, and with sustaining support, hopefully well into the future. Thank you for listening. And for your
Support for Radio IQ comes from EZ Performance Center and Honda. Located in Orange, Virginia, EZ Performance offers Honda power sports and power equipment. More information at ezpcva.com. And by Wild Birds Unlimited Charlottesville. Bird food, feeders, gifts, and guidance. 29 North near Rio Road. More information at mywbu.com/Charlottesville.
If you are into plants, California is the place to be.
One thing that is really interesting about San Diego County is it is the most biodiverse county in the entire nation.
I'm Kyle Rizdal. It's a planter's paradise out here. That story, all the day's numbers from Wall Street, and the rest of the business news next time on Marketplace.
Tune in for Marketplace, beginning at 6 on Radio IQ.
Funding for Here and Now comes from the listeners of WBUR Boston, where the program is produced, and your NPR station, and Americans United for Separation of Church and State, defending church-state separation and the First Amendment, including freedom of the press, for nearly 80 years. Learn more at au.org. And Viking, dedicated to creating travel experiences for the thinking person, with programs designed for cultural enrichment on board and on shore. Learn more at Viking.com.
From NPR and WBUR, I'm Indira Lakshmanan.
I'm Robin Young. It's Here and Now. We're keeping an eye on all of today's breaking news, but right now, a personal look at the decision this month from the CDC's advisory panel to roll back the 34-year-old recommendation that the hepatitis B vaccine be given to all newborns right after birth. Medical experts say that's prevented about 90,000 childhood deaths and 500,000 infections. The new recommendation is that only newborns whose mothers test positive get vaccinated. For others, the vaccine can be delayed, or parents should consult with a doctor. Here's Health and Human Services head Robert F. Kennedy Jr. speaking out against the vaccines, claiming falsely that infections are contracted only by sexual activity or IV drug use.
Most of the vaccines after 1989 were added not for public health reasons, but for profit. Why are we vaccinating one-day-old babies for hepatitis B? Hepatitis B is sexually transmitted. You get it from having sex with multiple partners, gay sex, or from sex workers. Why would you give that to a baby?
Another reason, the often deadly virus can also be transmitted by blood, so by sharing razors or toothbrushes or from someone having a small cut. And the transmission can happen years after birth. John David Ellis is now 35. So, John, you did not receive the Hep B vaccination at birth because you were born in 1990. That's a year before the universal recommendation in 1991.
Yes, ma'am, that's correct. I was not vaccinated for hepatitis B until middle school.
Okay, so you first got the shot at 12 or 13, a huge gap from birth, a time in which you were not vaccinated or protected. Tell us what happened when you were 16.
Yeah, so at 16 years old, I was feeling more tired than a typical teenager. I was having stomach pains. My mom, who is a nurse, she was like, let's get this checked out. Let's go to the doctor. And so through the course of the lab works, the doctor said, hey, we think you might have hepatitis B.
Yeah. When you found out what that was, what did you think?
Yeah, I mean, initially my mom and I were just stunned. You know, we thought hepatitis B was a thing of the past, like polio. We knew there was a vaccine. I knew that I had received the vaccine in middle school, so we were just in disbelief.
And probably a bit of despair, because let's remind people what hepatitis B is. You know, it's a viral infection that can lead to liver failure, cirrhosis, cancer. You know, it attacks the liver. It's pretty horrible and can be deadly.
Yeah, you know, it was only after the diagnosis that I was able to piece together this wasn't normal. I would get home from school and I would pretty well sleep until dinner, wake up, eat dinner, and then immediately go back to sleep. So especially for people my age that missed that window of opportunity for getting the vaccine at birth, you can live with hepatitis B and not really pinpoint any one symptomatic issue. You know, fortunately, I've been able to manage the virus in collaboration with my doctor, but there are so many that may be living with it that don't really experience any symptoms.
So again, you're saying these were people who could be spreading it unknowingly. But I'm imagining you've also met people who had liver transplants or worse.
Yeah, the leading cause of liver cancer, from my understanding, is hepatitis B. And so in some ways, the hepatitis B vaccine is almost like a cancer vaccine in that regard.
Oh, so I can't imagine how you were both feeling. And then more research came back, scans of your liver. So what was the thinking about if you'd had the vaccine in middle school? When did you possibly contract this?
They estimated, based on the scarring on my liver, that I contracted it as early as 3 or 4 years old.
And did they know how?
You know, that's going to be a question that I simply won't have the answer to for the rest of my life. Whether it's daycare, the dentist, my mother being a nurse is tested and vaccinated. So there was no chance that I got it from my mother.
Right. Well, since it's spread by bodily fluids, semen, but also blood, as you said, it could have been in so many different places. You're 16 when you got this news. Did you feel it was a death sentence? I mean, what were you thinking?
Yeah, I mean, I truly thought that I was going to die. Through the support of friends and family, I was able to get to a better place mentally. But of course, at 16, I really thought my life was over.
Well, but I got to say, you sure picked up fast. I mean, you went on a bike ride, do I understand? At 17, a 1,200-mile bike ride from Pensacola, Florida to Philadelphia. This is where the Hepatitis B Foundation is based. You rode with your best friend. Your grandma's in a chase car. What were you trying to do in that ride?
The bike ride for me was, one, proving to myself that I didn't have to
fold.
Yeah, stay in this kind of dark, sad place. I wanted to prove to myself that I could still do things. And secondly, to raise awareness. The experience my mother and I had when I initially got the diagnosis. I couldn't imagine other people getting news like that, and the sheer loneliness that you feel. I wanted to raise awareness that this was an issue, not just for other countries throughout the world, that this was happening, in the United States.
Yeah. Well, I have to note at the end of this ride, it sounds incredible, you were joined by Dr. Baruch Blumberg, who's the Nobel Prize winner who discovered the hepatitis B virus and helped develop a vaccine. What a moment for you.
Yeah, it was an incredible full circle moment. I believe he was in his 80s, and he rode the last 10 or so miles with us.
Well, and also, I'm imagining it cemented for you a sense of science is real. This is a vaccine you wish you'd had. I had polio in 55, just, a few months before the vaccine came out. Now, very, very mild case. I was so lucky. You have something that still could turn on you. Again, RFK Jr. is not just pulling back on the recommendations that all newborns get the vaccine. He's also spreading this false information that the only way to catch it is through sex or drug use.
I'm not a politician, I'm not a medical professional, but when it comes to the hepatitis B vaccine, we have 30 years of success. As far as I know, there are no instances where the hepatitis B vaccine has resulted in any major complications for newborns. Ultimately, I just kind of wonder if these decisions are actually being made on facts and data. It really seems like it's more based on feelings.
Do you worry about the children it might affect?
Yeah, I try not to talk about it too much because I get a little emotional. But, I have met several individuals throughout my life. They hear my story and they share with me either they themselves have hepatitis B or someone close to them has hepatitis B. It's really the mental and emotional toll. That's what weighs on me when I consider the implications of of some of these decisions.
What would you say to parents who are so confused now? Again, RFK Jr. is not just pulling back on the recommendations that all newborns get the vaccine at birth, but he's spreading this false information that the only way to catch it is through sex or drug use. And that puts all the onus on the mom, by the way, but also doesn't point parents to other causes like saliva or a cut on a caregiver's arm. What would you say to parents?
Everything's going to be okay. You know, now more than ever, I think it's important for individuals to take charge of their own health, of their family's health, and not just rely on what we hear in the news.
Isn't that sad? Because what we're hearing in the news is from the government that's supposed to make people safe. You've been speaking. What kind of feedback are you getting?
Most recently, I had a doctor in my own community reach out. She herself was diagnosed with hepatitis B. And I think there's a sense of we need more connection within the medical community with others throughout the country that have been diagnosed with hepatitis B. The decisions that have been made by ACIP and the CDC, it was disappointing, but I don't think that anyone is resigned to the decisions that have been made.
Yeah. Well, we wish you the best of luck with it. We wish you good health.
Thank you so much, Robin.
John David Ellis. Again, he was born in 1990, a year before the CDC recommended all newborns get the Hep B vaccination. He didn't. He contracted hepatitis B when he was 3. RFK Jr. has now denounced the vaccine for newborns. The CDC has now rolled back that 1991 universal recommendation for the shot that John wishes he had had. You're listening to Here and Now.
If you visit this station's website, you can stay on top of local elections, find out about your town's culinary scene, maybe even nod your head to a new Tiny Desk performance. And it's listener donations that help make everything you watch, read, and hear from this station happen. I'm E. Martinez. Donate your unwanted vehicle to this station, and the next time you're scrolling through stories in the coffee shop, you can blurt out, "Hey, my car did that," to the surprise of everyone sitting around you. Here's how.
Go to radioiq.org and click the vehicle donation banner at the top of the page. OpenAI's Sora 2 lets anyone with a smartphone make and share AI-generated deep fake videos, from phony footage of a corgi rock climbing to fake videos of kids carrying guns in school. What could go wrong?
We're actually now in a world where, I hate to say it, but we cannot believe our eyes.
How to hold on to reality in a world of AI-generated lies. That's on the next On Point.
On Point comes your way weekdays at 7 on Radio IQ.
Funding for Here and Now comes from the listeners of WBUR Boston and your NPR station, and the Marotra Institute at Boston University, hosting the Is Business Broken podcast, featuring conversations with academics, industry leaders, and politicians. More at ibms.bu.edu. And Made In, makers of cookware found in restaurants around the world, offering a carbon steel nonstick griddle for home use, designed for use indoors or outdoors, on a grill or over an open flame. More at madeincookware.com.
It's Here and Now. On Monday morning in Hong Kong, Jimmy Lai, a leading Hong Kong pro-democracy supporter and outspoken critic of China, was convicted on national security charges. Lai is a Chinese-born British citizen, and he was the founder of the largest pro-democracy newspaper in Hong Kong, Apple Daily, which was raided and forced to shut down in 2021 under pressure from Chinese authorities. The 78-year-old, who became a prominent face of Hong Kong's efforts to retain some of its freedoms after it was returned by Britain to Chinese rule in 1997, now faces the possibility of life in prison. Joining me now is Mark Clifford, author of The Troublemaker, How Jimmy Lai Became a Billionaire, Hong Kong's Greatest Dissident, and China's Most Feared Critic. Mark is also the president of the Committee for Freedom in Hong Kong Foundation and was previously a director of Next Digital, the parent company of Apple Daily. Welcome, Mark.
Nice to be here. Thanks.
So Jimmy Lai was found guilty under this national security law after a trial that lasted 156 days. Lai himself was on the stand for 52 days. Explain to us what exactly he's convicted of doing.
Well, that's a great question. I think ultimately the Chinese government doesn't like him because he's the most effective opponent of Chinese communist rule. He's guilty, according to the judges, of meeting U.S. officials and other foreign officials and asking for help for Hong Kong's pro-democracy movement. The Chinese seem to think that he's some kind of black hand or a puppet master who got millions of people out in the streets in Hong Kong in 2019 and in 2014. But it's nonsense. He's a newspaper guy. He's a rich man. He believes in democracy, believes in freedom, put his money where his mouth was, and was willing to go to prison for it.
So remind our listeners briefly, why is Hong Kong's national security law so controversial?
Well, when China took over Hong Kong from Britain in 1997, after 150 years of British colonialism, it made all sorts of promises to the people of Hong Kong. Chinese authorities promised that Hong Kong would enjoy all the freedoms it had under British rule and more, and that they'd be able to have universal suffrage, which really just meant electing the mayor and the city council. And Jimmy Lai and others were, the Apple Daily newspaper took the Chinese authorities at their word and tried to push to see that those freedoms were still in operation. And with Chinese weren't willing to allow freedom, ultimately, millions of people came out in the streets, and they decided that Jimmy was the guy who was responsible for it all.
You write in the New York Times that Lai's conviction is, quote, a critical test of whether the United States and other Western democracies will stand up for the values they profess to hold dear. Lai, as we said, is a British citizen. Have UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer and President Trump, what have they said about his case?
Well, to their credit, both of them have called for Lai to be free. President Trump, when he was campaigning, said it would be very easy to free Jimmy Lai. 100% he would do it. And again, to his credit, he's asked his cabinet ministers and others to work to free Lai. He brought it up at his meeting with Xi Jinping in South Korea at the end of October. Keir Starmer has also called for Lai's release, but I think they need to do more. They need to make this a key test of the relationship, because otherwise China's just going to keep lying, breaking its promises, pushing the world around. Today it's Hong Kong, tomorrow it's Taiwan. Who knows what's next?
You've called Jimmy Lai Hong Kong's greatest dissident and China's most feared critic. What is it that the Chinese fear so much about him?
Well, he is a unique character. I don't think in 75 years of communist rule they've run up against somebody who's a rich businessman, a media owner, and has real principles and values that he's willing to stand up for. He's been going toe-to-toe with them for over 30 years. He's a guy who came out of the garment trade. He made sweaters. He was a penniless immigrant, worked his way up, and then after the Tiananmen killings of 1989, decided he'd go into media because he loves China. He wanted to push China and the cause of reform forward. And I think they hate him for being so effective at it.
Mark, in the short time we have left, you also say that Lai's conviction is a severe blow for the future of civil liberties in Hong Kong. Some have even said it's a complete death knell for one country, two systems, the idea that Hong Kong would have any kind of autonomy. What is your thinking on this today in the light of this verdict?
The verdict wasn't unexpected, but it still feels like a kick in the stomach. And it's just, there's 600 people in prison in Hong Kong on political charges. And I think Jimmy's case just underscores how determined the Chinese Communist Party is to end any semblance of freedom in Hong Kong.
One last question. Lai's 78 years old. He's been in jail for 5 years already. What do we know about the condition of his health?
Well, he's deteriorating. He had diabetes going in there. He's had COVID and cataract surgery in prison. Most damaging is that he's been held in solitary confinement for most of the more than 1,800 days he's been in prison. That would take a toll on anybody, and he's lost a lot of weight. He's clearly deteriorating. He's in his late 70s. As you said, he's 78 years old. So the prognosis is not good if he's sentenced to a long term in prison, which he almost certainly will be.
Mark Clifford, biographer of Jimmy Lai and a president of the Committee for Freedom in Hong Kong Foundation. Mark, thank you so much.
Thanks so much.
Here and Now is a production of NPR and WBUR. I'm Indira Lakshmanan.
I'm Robin Young. Lots going on today. Thank you for choosing to listen to us on your trusted public radio station. Here and Now.
Funding for Here and Now comes from the listeners of WBUR Boston. and from the Museum of Science, Boston, where visitors can experience live presentations with indoor lightning storms, animals, robotics, and hands-on design challenges. Learn more at mos.org.
I'm General Manager Roger Duvall. Radio IQ has wrapped up our winter on-air drive. With your help, we surpassed the goal of $80,000 and welcome more than 100 new donors. To all that gave this week or this year, thank you so much for your support. With your help, we'll be here in the weeks and months to come, and with sustaining support, hopefully well throughout the upcoming new year. Thank you for listening, and thanks very much for your support. Happy holidays from all of us at Radio IQ.
This week on This American Life, stories of Christmas presents, including an old one from Truman Capote, who sounds surprisingly like David Sedaris.
She has never eaten in a restaurant, traveled more than 5 miles from home, received or sent a telegram, cursed, wished someone harm, let a hungry dog go hungry.
Truman Capote, this week.
Monday evenings at 8 and Saturday afternoons at 3 on Radio IQ.
Actually, since the campaign.
You're listening to Radio IQ on WVTF Roanoke, WRIQ Charles City, Richmond, WVTU Charlottesville, WVTW Charlottesville, WVTR Marion, WISE FMY, WQIQ Spotsylvania, WIUR Lexington, WEHC Emory, HD3 of WURV Richmond, and on 92.5 Richmond and 94.9 Fredericksburg. Radio IQ, a listener-supported community service of Virginia Tech, on your smart speaker and online at radioiq.org.
Funding for Here and Now comes from MathWorks, creator of MATLAB and Simulink software, accelerating the pace of engineering and science. Learn more at mathworks.com.
From NPR and WBUR Boston, I'm Indira Lakshmanan.
I'm Robin Young. It's Here and Now.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
Coming up, a trio of tragedies, including the shooting at the Brown University campus. We'll hear from a student in the building as that attack took place.
Also, the latest on the mass shooting at a Hanukkah celebration on Australia's Bondi Beach. Authorities are now calling it a terrorist attack.
And we remember Hollywood giant Rob Reiner, found dead along with his wife Michelle Singer. His son has been arrested. We'll remember some of our conversations with Rob Reiner.
I basically make the same movie over and over again. What I've discovered is essentially women are just more evolved than men.
Good afternoon and welcome to the 2 o'clock p.m. session of City Council on December 15th, 2025. City Council meetings are televised live and replayed on RVTV Channel 3 on Thursdays at 7 p.m. and Saturdays from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. And they're video streamed through YouTube Live at youtube.com/RoanokeVA. Council meetings are offered with closed captioning for the deaf or hard of hearing. This time I'd like to ask our Deputy City Clerk, Ms. Webb, to please call the roll.
Mr. Hagan.
Here.
Ms. Sanchez-Jones.
Here.
Vice Mayor McGuire.
Here.
Mr. Nash.
Here.
Mr. Vollison.
Here.
Ms. Powers. Here. And Mayor Cobb.
Here, and a quorum is present. We're honored today to welcome the Reverend Alexander McPhail, Rector of Christ Episcopal Church, who will lead our invocation, and I will lead our Pledge of Allegiance. And before that, I want to offer a moment of silence, so would you please stand? I'd like for us to pause for a moment of silence in memory of Councilwoman Vivian Sanchez-Jones' father, Manuel Sanchez, who passed away this week. Would you join me in a moment of silence?
Let us pray. Almighty God, who has given us this good land for our heritage, we humbly beseech you that we may always prove ourselves a people mindful of your favor and glad to do your will. Bless our land with honorable industry and sound learning and pure manners. Save us from violence, discord, and confusion, from pride and arrogance, and from every evil way. Defend our liberties, and fashion into one united people the multitudes brought hither out of many kindreds and tongues. Endue with the spirit of wisdom those to whom in your name we entrust the authority of government, that there may be justice and peace at home, and that through obedience to your law we may show forth your praise among the nations of the earth. In the time of prosperity, fill our hearts with thankfulness, and in the day of trouble, suffer not our trust in you to fail. All which we ask through your holy name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Council of the City of Roanoke is seeking applications for various vacancies on council-appointed authorities, boards, commissions, and committees. To access an application online, you can go through the city's website at roanokeva.gov, or you can, to complete an online application, or you can contact our clerk's office anytime during the week. We begin with our presentations and acknowledgments, and as we do at our 2 o'clock sessions, I'll ask my colleagues to share any shout-outs of things that they have been a part of or seen throughout our city that they want to commend this afternoon. So, Ms. Powers, I'll start with you.
Yes, I'd like to give a shout out to all of our nonprofit organizations that during this time of the year, how they're reaching out to our people that most need our help, whether it's our homeless or people that are alone, just watching out for them, and our churches that are doing all the programs with our youth to teach them what the true meaning of Christmas really is. Thank you.
My shout out is to our Department of Public Works. We had some snowfalls, plural, recently, and I know we always hear about how Salem City must have heated streets. Well, I woke up and felt like I was in Salem. Now Roanoke can say that because the streets were well maintained and well cleared. So thank you, Ms. Turner, and to you and your staff for making sure that everybody was safe during those snow removal processes. And I also wanted to do a shout out to the operations center that just opened up on Friday with our police department. It's amazing the technology that they have in there. I think it's going to make our community a much safer place. And so I thank them for their hard work on that and getting that up and running.
I would just add on first to the crime center that opened up on Friday. I'm very excited for that. And I think it's going to really help our law enforcement officers, number one, protect our citizens, protect the city, but then number two, protect themselves as well, which is super vital and super important. I also would like to just shout out both Xavier Duckett and Bryce Cobbs. I had the honor of going to Richmond to the Black Chamber of Commerce gala, and Xavier Duckett with Humble Hustle won the award for Innovator of the Year, which was a really big accomplishment. I mean, it was Black business owners from all over the entire state that he was up against. Hundreds applied. It was like 600 people in the finalist category, and he won. So big congratulations to him. And then our very own Bryce Cobbs as well, Art by Bryce, who does a lot of our local art and murals all around town, was also nominated in the art category. And he did not win, but like I said, it was thousands of people from all over the state in his category as well. So to be one of the finalists is a huge accomplishment. So I'm very proud of both of them.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to give 2 shout outs. The first, not last Friday, but the Friday before, I was able to join the tree lighting downtown and had a really good time with that. So I want to thank Downtown Roanoke Inc. and Tina Workman and everyone that is making our downtown look festive for the holidays. I had a really nice time at that. And I also want to give a shout out to my neighborhood association, Old Southwest Inc., for another successful parlor tour that they had. That was last weekend. And congratulations to them. I had a good time on that as well. And say thanks to all of the neighborhood groups that are organizing and bringing their neighbors together this time of year. Thank you.
My shout out goes to the staff for their support during this time. Thank you.
My shout out goes to Downtown Roanoke Inc. I was also at the tree lighting ceremony, as well as the parade. And there is for Dickens of Christmas, Delta Dental's Dickens of Christmas, we have the pet costume competition thing that's coming up on Friday. So if you haven't been, it's worth checking out, seeing some of those vendors.
I would just add to all of this, I appreciate the organizations locally that are providing warming shelters during this frigid weather. That information is being posted through social media, but in particular, the shelter programs that already exist, the Rescue Mission, Family Promise of Greater Roanoke, leased in this and the Hope Center on 11th Street. And I would just say that if there are other warming shelters being provided that you need help promoting work that you're doing, please let our emergency management team know, as well as our city manager knows. Right, our next item today is the hearing of citizens upon public matters. This is the time we set aside as a priority for all citizens to be heard. All matters will be referred to the city manager for response, recommendation, or report back to the council as she may deem appropriate. If you're speaking for the first time today, when you come up to the podium,
trying to get as far as I could.
The mic's live, so you don't have to worry about any of that. There's a box in the upper right-hand corner that has 3 lights, a green light, a yellow light, and a red light. Every speaker will have 3 minutes. Green means go, yellow means you have about a minute left, and then red means stop. If you're wrapping up, I'll work with you to wrap it up. But we do thank you for your presence today. And Madam Clerk, I'll ask you to just call speakers 2 at a time.
Anthony Stavola and David Hoops. Thank you.
Welcome, Dr. Stavola.
Thank you. Mayor Cobb, council members, City Manager Turner, thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. You have each previously received a letter with multiple signatures that spoke to concerns about the current status of the zoning amendments and modifications to be obtained for those. At the August council meeting, a proposal was adopted that a subcommittee of the council work with planning staff and obtain input on potential changes to meet some of the concerns expressed. This came after Mr. Hagan had made a motion to repeal the amendments. Preliminary proposals were to be brought back to council at the October meeting as a gesture of good faith and as a means to facilitate discussion. We, who had previously filed a lawsuit, elected not to pursue that so that there could be open and honest discussion. I had the opportunity to meet with Mr. Vollison and Mr. Hagan, and we had a very positive discussion focusing on addressing 3 or 4 major areas of concern and possible approaches to that. We're now 2 months past the time frame given to bring some preliminary proposals back to this body. Requests to have additional information or to meet with planning staff have been met with the response that the proposals are being worked on. No meeting was offered. To my knowledge, there's been no further opportunity for public input, though it has been mentioned that once proposals do become available, there will be some public meetings made. We are asking for modifications in a few areas and have had for many months proposals available. These have been developed in consultation with individuals who have extensive planning and zoning backgrounds. Unfortunately, we have not been afforded the opportunity to discuss those in detail with city staff, resulting in needless delays. The council, I believe, was clear in its statement that it did not want this problem to continue to go unaddressed for an extended period. As this process continues to drag on, it's also leading to a delay in the ability for staff to address other issues that are also of importance. For our leaders to be able to function effectively, it's imperative they have the trust of those they seek to lead. The timeline document that has been distributed goes back in the past to how long these discussions have been underway and what has happened during that time frame. And as is demonstrated there, the actions and words of city representatives in the past often contradicted each other or were inaccurate and have resulted in a loss of that trust. This council and this administration has the opportunity to rebuild that trust by showing that it is committed to an open and transparent process and a firm timeline. Virginia, as we know, is the land of perpetual elections, and we will be entering another election cycle. There is no reason why this should still have to be an issue going into that cycle. So we repeat the request that's included in the letter, that this council and our city manager direct planning staff to provide a report on the current status of formulating changes to the zoning amendments, as well as a preliminary timeline for discussion, and that timeline should be adhered to. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Stavola.
David Hoops.
Afternoon, council members, city manager. I come today to talk about illegal parking in bike lanes, sidewalks, and greenways. Short story, I went to visit my family in Garden City Thanksgiving night, enjoyed dinner with them, rode my bike. It's my only form of transportation other than my feet. On the way home, going down the greenway, I come across a car that is parked directly on the greenway. So I have to squeeze between a very small, unobstructed space on the greenway between a car, a hill, and some stairs. There's also parking in bike lanes. It becomes a safety factor to everybody. All I'm asking is to enforce the rules that are on the books. And we've heard this year that revenue is an issue. These people are willingly volunteering that they would like to help with this issue. I would like to see us grab the low-hanging fruit where we can get it. So I would very much appreciate that I don't have to continue to remind police department, transportation, city manager, y'all, that this is a problem. I was here last year at this time, here again, it continues to happen. There has been some areas that this has been rectified, some areas it keeps happening. Would like to see some movement, better enforcement of what's on the books, and grab the low-hanging fruit for our revenue that the city desperately needs. Thank y'all.
Thank you, Mr. Hoops. I appreciate it.
Spurgeon Vaughn. And Ralph Smith.
Welcome, Mr. Vaughn.
Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to speak to you. We as elected officers of the citizens of this area are to protect and keep our people from loss if we can help it. As I understand, the casino project would, for every $100 million, the owners would get 80 or 94 million, and the town or Roanoke would get 6 million. And I see very little that the community might have an opportunity to gain from such a thing. I do understand that there would be interest in restaurants and motels that would help, but as I look to the community, I see very little for the community. I asked you to, if you will, to take a good look at that, and if you will, I would like for you to turn this project down, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Hello,
Hello,
Mayor,
Mr. Smith.
members of council. Good to be back with you. I am here again about the casino issue and about the travesty of the damages to those with gambling addictions. It's more exposure, and it's unfortunate. Some that don't know it yet. If there's a casino here in our city, they're going to be new, addicted. Unfortunately, there's just many people that can't afford it. And so I plead with you. I spent many years having lobbyists knock on my door, and I know that casino lobbyists are some of the sharpest around. And don't be hoodoo. They convince you of wonderful things. Look closely. I don't know if I'm violating protocol if I ask everybody in the room who opposes a casino to please stand as you're able. And I say that to those I'm facing as well as those in the audience. And there are many. I thank these for coming out today. Now, also, when I was on that dais, we found out that we could accomplish a lot of things. We, the city of Roanoke, looking across our borders with a nearby city, Salem, and the counties, to how we could work together. I hope you have visited with each of them before you decided to consider going down this casino avenue. Now, I live about as close to Roanoke as you can be and still be in Botetourt County. But I live in Botetourt County, and I can tell you, Botetourt County doesn't want a casino in Daleville Town Center. Botetourt County doesn't want a casino in Roanoke City. Now, news of big things came about when major company, major industry was coming to Botetourt County. Roanoke City was pretty quick to say, you're going to have to share that revenue with us. I hope you will think about this when you go forward. Thank you for that.
Thank you so much.
Brian Smith and Susan Edwards.
Welcome, Dr. Smith.
Good afternoon and Merry Christmas. Thank you for hearing me. I have given copies of a resolution that I humbly would like to submit to you as a city council for your consideration and hopefully its passage. It says, whereas the city Roanoke City Council is charged with protecting the economic, social, and moral well-being of the residents and families of the city of Roanoke, and whereas casino gambling in communities across the nation has been associated with increased addiction, family instability, financial hardship, crime, and added strain on local government services, and whereas evidence from other municipalities show that promised casino revenues often fall short as consumer spending is diverted from local businesses and profits leave the community, and whereas anticipated revenues are frequently offset by increased costs to law enforcement, social services, courts, and healthcare, including higher rates of unpaid medical bills and unmet financial obligations that burden healthcare providers, landlords, small businesses, and charitable organizations, and whereas the city of Roanoke has a proud heritage rooted in strong families and ethical enterprise, civic responsibility, and community investment, and whereas the council believes Roanoke's future is best served through sustainable economic development, workforce training, tourism, innovation, and support of local businesses rather than industries with long-term social and economic risk, now therefore be it resolved by the council of the city of Roanoke, Virginia, that one, that the city council formally opposes the establishment or operation of a casino or similar gambling enterprise within the city of Roanoke or on property under its jurisdiction. Two, that the council affirms its commitment to pursuing alternative economic development strategies that promote long-term stability, local investment, and the well-being of Roanoke residents. And three, that this resolution shall take effect immediately upon adoption, and that the clerk of the council is directed to transmit this resolution to appropriate state, local authorities, and communicate the council's position publicly. Mr. Mayor and council members, thank you for allowing me once again to address you on this subject. Please understand, it is offered with respect, with gratitude, and with the love for a city and a valley that over 19 years I have come to be blessed to call it my home. I'm not trying to roll back the hands of time nor stand against progress, but I am concerned that those who are vulnerable, those who are most prone to obsessive compulsive disorders with gambling addictions, the financial hardship, those that will suffer the most in the long run need our protection. And we can give them that protection by simply approving this resolution or one like it, where as a majority, we will be doing our best to look after the least of those who are our neighbors and our friends and our loved ones. I want to thank you for your time. I want to remind all of us that when Roanoke, if we receive and accept a casino, then Roanoke will lose because the House always wins. God bless you and Merry Christmas. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Smith. Appreciate it. Welcome, Ms. Edwards.
Good afternoon, Mayor Cobb, City Council, and our city manager. Thank you for inviting us to speak to you this afternoon. If you look at my address as I filled it out in asking to speak before the board, I live in Craig County. I drove over specifically to address you today. I lived in Roanoke County for over 30 years, and I ask you once again, I was here last month, I ask you again to not pursue a casino in the Roanoke Valley. Last meeting, I brought up that there's another casino, been there quite some time at the Greenbrier Resort in West Virginia, and that facility is underground. I ask that you don't pursue this, don't spend the money and the resources when you're trying to build economic development. Pursue other things. We live in a beautiful area of our nation. We have great traditions. We're getting ready to celebrate the 250th birthday of our country with wonderful history that included the Roanoke Valley. You have this great connection with the biomedical activity with Carilion and Virginia Tech. There are other things to pursue, and there are great people that live in our community. I just want to encourage you to go in a much more positive direction and spend your attention on pursuing other economic development. Thank you all so much, and have a Merry Christmas.
Thank you very much. That's it? Well, thanks again to everyone who turned out to speak this afternoon. We appreciate your time and the work that you've put into your presentations. We're going to move now to our consent agenda. All matters listed under the consent agenda are considered to be routine by members of the City Council and are enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of the items. However, if discussion is desired, the item can be removed for discussion. Included in the consent agenda are 5 requests for closed meetings, 1 from my office and 4 from the city attorney. The first is to discuss vacancies on certain authorities, boards, commissions, and committees appointed by council. 2 are regarding, the second one is possible disposal of publicly owned property in the central part of the city. Third is to consult with legal counsel regarding a certain legal matter concerning the provision of legal advice by the city attorney concerning contract obligations involving a city-owned facility. 4 is to discuss or consider the acquisition of real property for a public purpose in the central part of the city. And 5 is to consult with legal counsel regarding a certain legal matter requiring the provision of legal advice by outside legal counsel involving the legal standards for financing of the schools. I'll entertain a motion and second for the consent agenda.
Move the consent agenda.
Second.
Thank you. Council members Hagan and Nash. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Hagan.
Aye.
Ms. Sanchez Jones. Vice Mayor McGuire.
Aye.
Mr. Nash.
Aye.
Mr. Volleson.
Aye.
Ms. Powers.
Aye.
And Mayor Cobb.
Aye, and the consent agenda is adopted. We have no public hearings this afternoon, so we'll move on to petitions and communications. And we have a presentation this afternoon from the Friends of Mountain View to share the Parks and Recreation Mountain View Park Vision Plan and to provide an update on the documentary created about the Mountain View Home and Capital Campaign for Restoration. Allison Blanton, board member, is the spokesperson, and this is being sponsored by Vice Mayor McGuire and Councilmember Volleson. So thank you both for bringing this before us. Thank you, Ms. Blanton, for presenting this today. And I know that we have folks here from the Mountain View Capital Campaign and neighborhood area. Would anyone connected with Mountain View please stand so that we can recognize you and thank you for your work on this. Thank you all for being here today.
Yes, she is.
Cindy's before.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. Go around me. It's a beautiful puppy.
Welcome, Ms. McFall.
Hello. Good afternoon, Mayor Cobb, Vice Mayor McGuire, members of City Council, Ms. Turner. I'm pleased to come before you today to introduce an important partner organization, Friends of Mountain View, which the department has been collaborating with since their inception in 2020. We have members of you've already announced the members of the Friends of Mountain View Board, but they are here with us and we thank them for being here. The Friends of Mountain View were founded to support the Parks and Recreation Department in its efforts to pursue restoration and sustainable ongoing stewardship of one of our most unique assets, the Mountain View Recreation Center, also known as the Fishburne Mansion. This collaborative effort has been focused most recently on the development of a vision plan for the facility to guide future investments and support fundraising efforts. I'd like to introduce Friends of Mountain View member Allison Blanton, who will be sharing more about the Friends of Mountain View and their work, as well as a summary of the vision plan's findings and recommendations for your consideration. Thank you. Allison.
Thank you, Ms. McFall.
Yep. Thank you. Okay. Yep. Okay, Laura. Y'all can't turn me down for anything with this cute dog, can you?
What is your cute dog's name?
Flora.
Flora.
Yes.
That's great.
Yes. Thank you. And we've got Bob Clement also here with me.
Welcome,
who is
Bob.
another
It's good to see you.
board member of the Friends of Mountain View. So thank you all again for letting us make this presentation to let you all know what we've been doing in close partnership with the city. So I don't want to repeat anything Cindy said, but I know she has given you all a staff report that has a little bit more detail, but we'll walk you through who we are and what we've been doing. So next slide will be who we are, and we are a 501c3 that's a board of elected members that are all residents of the city and supporters of the Mountain View Mansion and the property. Our primary mission is to support through advocacy and education and fundraising, and most importantly, partnership with the city, support the preservation and full utilization and appreciation of Mountain View. I assume or hope that all of you all know a little bit about its architectural and historical significance in our city. It was built in 1907 as the largest house in Roanoke by J.B. Fishburne, who of course was a pivotal leadership in the early years of Roanoke that really set us on the course where we enjoy such a great place to live today. So we'll have more to come about J.B. Fishburne, but just want to make sure everybody's on board with understanding why we care so much about this property. And as you all know, upon his death in 1955, he did deed the property to the city for use as a recreational center. So next slide is what we have been doing. First and foremost, and this will be a theme throughout my presentation, we are constantly collaborating with City Parks and Recreation staff. This is a partnership to the fullest extent, and we are there to really help them maintain and operate this property to the extent that it deserves. So things that we have done working closely with them, we have identified a lot of small projects and have even stepped in that are urgently needed. And also we've stepped in and offered our volunteer services to do several small cleanup projects. We've also held fundraising events, including the Wickets and Wine. We've done that for 3 years in a row, which while it's been kind of a small fundraiser, probably more important than the money that's been raised has been the awareness that it's raised about the property, as it's brought a lot of people to the property, which has been great. We have also successfully written several grants. One we did not receive, but two we wrote. One directly we wrote for the Fishburne Foundation, and the other one we helped the city write to the Department of Historic Resources. And those together funded the vision plan, which is what we want to tell you a little bit more about today. And we're currently working on a documentary about J.B. Fishburne, which is being funded by some of the money that we raised through the Wickets and Wine fundraiser. So then talking a little bit more about moving on into the vision plan, I think first and foremost, you all as council members will appreciate the fact that we have been very much focused on engaging with the public and the community to make sure that they appreciate and understand the significance of this property, understand that it is a public property that belongs to them and that they have access to it and can use it, and then to really learn from them how can it better be utilized. That was really the focus of that. So a lot of community engagement. It started out with an online survey, and then also we identified a lot of targeted stakeholders that ranged from city operations and facilities staff, parks and recreation, and their events people, as well as local businesses, community members, history and preservation related organizations in town, as well as just the neighbors themselves. And we had a great turnout when we had our workshop with various meetings where we were able to get a lot of input from the community. We followed that up with an open house that was really well attended by the public and explained to them what we had kind of generated over that design charrette that weekend. So that was very successful. And we continue, during that workshop, we also engaged with Hill Studio, who were the consultants hired for this project, and offered our ideas as well. And am I missing anything on that? No. Okay, thank you. Okay, so moving into the vision plan itself, a quick summary, which I know that Cindy included some of this in your staff report, but it was completed in June, the end of June, beginning of July of 2024. It was funded by grants from both the Fishburne Foundation as well as a certified local government grant from the Department of Historic Resources. And we did it in close collaboration with the City Parks and Recreation staff. The main purpose of the plan, we all knew that there are obvious things that need to be taken care of, where wood is rotting and things like that. But we also recognize that the property is kind of underutilized in some ways, most ways, because of its condition. And that's not just rotting wood, but it's also issues like accessibility and HVAC and things like that. And so it's kind of like you can't take care of the obvious things like the rotted wood and things like that without really understanding what is the potential for this property. And that's not only the house, the mansion house itself, but it's also the garage that has an apartment above on the second floor and a very, very unique, I would say a nationally unique greenhouse that there's very, very few that are built like that are actually were heated by steam pipes. So very, very significant greenhouse there that's also in very deteriorated condition. And then also the servants' cottage, which we talked to the family and have identified that as Bee's cottage. She was probably the most beloved servant of the family, and she used that cottage a lot. And so at their request, we've kind of named it Bee's cottage. So we addressed all of the buildings on the property as well as the grounds itself. And we're looking to not only assess the conditions, what are the existing conditions, but look at that long-term utilization, really dream what could all this property become, and also identify the urgent needs that need to be taken care of sooner rather than later, or it's just going to cost more, or the building won't be there anymore in terms of the greenhouse, as well as routine maintenance. So really try to set up a plan that addresses all the buildings throughout all time, now and in the future. And it also, probably most important to you all, had some cost estimates. And I will say the estimates that we had in 2024 were $4.68 million for all the buildings and the grounds. Those numbers are now almost 2 years old. And so we need to and they do not include like A&E fees, soft costs. These are hard construction costs. So I do want y'all to realize that the total price tag will probably be more than that. next slide, talking about the cost estimates, just to break down themselves. It is, as you'll see, the exterior work on the mansion, which is fairly urgent because we're losing really significant architectural pieces that, such as columns that are supporting porte cocheres that need to stay up. So there are some urgent needs there that are around $500,000. The interior and accessibility line item for the mansion house itself at 2.5, realize that that includes an elevator as well as, right now, the upstairs is not air conditioned. So there's really limitations in how this huge house can be used because of not only just accessibility, but also systems and comfort to being able to use the properties. I think they've got window units now for the staff, which is not ideal. Also, the greenhouse and garage and apartment building. And I should mention, what we're really also doing is looking at not just restoring, repairing these, but realizing what can they be used for and how can they expand the programming that the Parks and Recreation is able to provide and get more people and just provide services and event spaces for the people of Roanoke, because it is a unique property and everybody that comes there loves it. And it can really contribute to our quality of life, not only just for the residents right around there, but everybody in the area. So for example, the greenhouse opens up all sorts of programming type ideas that can be partnered with the extension agencies or just all sorts of just small event space when it's a beautiful greenhouse. Also looked at making the upstairs, which was an apartment originally, maybe making that become part of a package rental. If you were having a big event there, such as a wedding, you could stay there the night before or rent it to be able to put some of your things in and prepare for the wedding the night before. So realize that this is about expanding the utilization of the property as much as repairing much needed things that need to be done, conditions. And then the Bees Cottage, which has just been used as storage for years, looking at making one of the 2 rooms into public restrooms that would better support the events that are held outdoors, larger events, because right now there's just 2 restrooms inside the main mansion, one of which is accessible, not quite to code, but close to code. Anyway, so and then the other room could be used as support space for events. And then also even looking at the chicken coop, which is out there, which there was a lot of interest in having possibly restrooms that are available just to people during park hours, to people that come and walk their dogs or have picnics or things at the park, making a restroom available without having to go inside the mansion. And then finally, the grounds. And again, that is looking at how to really increase the utilization. And one thing I point out to people is this house does have this amazing ambiance to it that people love, but it is an old house. It's a large house, larger than most of our houses, but it's not a major large event space. But if you could expand out into the grounds themselves, then you can expand the number of people, the size of events that you can hold here, which will open up a whole nother level of potential rentals for the city. And you've got the ambiance of the house, but you don't have the restrictions of rooms that were built, large rooms, but still built to be a home. So the grounds and the improvements to the grounds are really important as part of this overall puzzle that we're putting together. So again, those are kind of a breakdown of the cost estimates. We'll walk you through just quickly some of the plans, the concepts that we developed with the city staff and Hill Studio. And just the exterior of the house, you can see how architecturally significant it is, but there's a lot of notes up there about things that need to be taken care of. Is that where we are? Yes. Yeah. Oh, thank you. Thanks. Y'all are brave to give me water. Okay, so that's just for the exterior. You can see we've got a lot of notations. And I should mention building specialists also helped out with this and Spectrum Design as well. So that's kind of giving you an idea of where the $500,000 would go. The next slide is an interior floor plan, and I want to emphasize that fortunately, we don't have to make very many we're not looking to make many changes. And as y'all know, with me being involved, everything would be done according to the Secretary of Interior standards, since this house is listed on the National Register. But the main thing, we looked at several areas of where to put an elevator that would have the least impact on both historic fabric and the historic plan of the building. So it's really not changing the floor plan except for where to put in that elevator, and then also to make some improvements for accessible routes inside the house. And then, of course, a lot of the funding, the cost estimate on that is updates to the HVAC systems as well.
And just to answer you, probably the question that's going in your mind, well, where is an elevator going to go inside this 11,000 square foot house and maintain the historic integrity of it? We're looking at, if you look at this floor plan, if you go to the back of the house towards 9 o'clock on the map, you see a box with an X on it, which is currently an enclosed back porch. That's the location that we're looking at for an elevator that would access all 3 floors from the basement all the way.
Oh, actually just 2. Oh, yeah. 3 floors count in the basement, but not the attic level or the 3rd floor. Because of the roof line, it just, what we would gain in being able to make that accessible versus the cost and the physical impact to the building did not seem to make that worth it. So it would be basement through the 2nd floor. So, yeah, thank you, Bob.
Yep.
Okay, and then our next slide is kind of showing you the conditions of the greenhouse and Bee's Cottage, which are right behind the main house. And you don't see those from 13th Street. So lots of times people don't realize that they're back there. But obviously the greenhouse is not only are they significant, but again, as I mentioned before, there's just a lot of potential in what they can offer to the overall operations and programming of this property. So those are conditions. And then the next slide is the potential concept plans of, as I mentioned before, turning renovating or basically reconstructing the greenhouse. Also looking at the downstairs, the old garage space, because it's got tiled wainscoting and tiled floor all around it. It provides a great location for kind of messy programming, whether it's some kind of painting or clay or something like that. But y'all have got a great opportunity that you've got a building that was built for washing cars, and now we can wash it down. And so again, can expand the programming that the Parks and Recreation could do. So we identified that as a good location for those kind of activities. And then the upstairs could be, it was built as an apartment, so it lends itself well. Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh,
Sorry.
did you move?
Yeah,
Okay. And then
it's
Bee's
got a mind of
Cottage.
its own.
Okay. Bee's Cottage is pretty simple. It's 2 rooms, which we're good. And we went round and round about whether or not an ADA restroom should be in that. But again, the impact of the ramp that would be needed on such a small building, we decided just to propose making that half of that restrooms that would support the, events, and the other half could be, just any number of things for an event, whether you set up a bar in there or you set up just a separate meeting space or something like that, and then let the ADA restroom be in the chicken coop, which could be more easily accessed. Okay, and then our final thing is just where do we go from here? And again, I take us full circle.
We have the ground site.
Right. Oh, I'm sorry. The ground. Oh gosh, Greg Webster would be furious if I forgot to mention that. Again, it's based a lot on historic photographs, as much as we could tell, both physically what was still there, as well as historic photographs and aerial photographs, trying to pick up on what historically the property included, and then building upon that for current and future needs. And so really identifying different areas that would allow for a large tent with an outdoor space versus also smaller, more intimate areas there that could be rented, and just give Parks and Recreation a lot of different options on how to use this property. Okay, now where do we go from here? Again, continuing to work very, very closely. Our role is really to advocate and raise funds and advocate both to you all as council as well as to the public, to the citizens, to make sure that they see this as a priority. But we also are getting ready to kick off in 2026 a capital campaign to leverage the money that we know that the city has budgeted in the fiscal year 28 CIP plan for its 1.5 million. So we know that we've got this time right now to go out and try to raise the money that we need to do this project. I will, and I should have mentioned back in the cost estimates, we've also gone through these very extensive estimates and made them so that we can sort them by any number, by urgency, by scope of work, by scale of funding that's needed, so that when we're looking, and as you'll see up there also, we're really going to be diving into various grants that are available, but to help us easily identify if there's a grant out there for $100,000, it's not for $3 million, but it doesn't mean that we can't identify little chunks of work that could be done in phases. So we do anticipate this will need to be done in phases. And I guess I should just wrap it up by saying we're in partnership with you all to continue with this. And we're doing, I should have mentioned earlier, it was on there and y'all may have seen it. We have engaged the Fishburne family. We had a very successful holiday party with them last year, and various members flew in from across the United States to come attend it, and they were very, very impressed and are very supportive of this project. So we have done that. And then we're working now, some of the funds that we raised through the Wickets and Wine have gone to pay for a documentary that we're having a local young woman put together for us, that she's just kind of wrapping it up now, and hope we'll be revealing that in the spring as part of our fundraising campaign. And then I should also say that we have engaged somebody and been through a capital campaign workshop with some of that money that we've raised to create a framework for a capital campaign. So, the main things are to look at grants, at public fundraising, and then also working with the city and the money that's in the CIP budget, and working with staff on how we can accomplish this large project in small pieces as funding becomes available. So, anything else? Do y'all have
Thank you,
questions?
Allison
Yes.
and Bob and Flora.
Okay.
That was an excellent presentation.
Well, sorry if I was off slides. at
Well, no,
times,
it's a
but-
great overview encompassing a lot of the history, but what will make it an even more special place.
But we urge you guys, if you have not visited the property, normally when people visit the property, they'll go inside the mansion because that's the big draw. But we certainly urge you guys, if you have some spare time, especially next week when we get back into the 60s again, go out to the property and walk around the exterior and just really and truly take it in. Take in that architectural beauty of a property that we have sitting in the middle of our city, and check out the outbuildings, check out the greenhouse. It's really a remarkable structure. But when you really start looking at these properties, or the exterior of these properties, you'll see that, wow, if we only re-hooked that gutter, we might not have the soffit issue. So, there are a lot of small things that can take place that will help prevent further deterioration from taking place, but it will also be eye-opening for you just to see just how much work does that property require.
Yeah, and feel free to contact any of us. We'd be happy to meet you over there and walk you through it, because we know we need to partner with you all as well as city staff.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So thank you for letting us be here today.
Yeah, so
Thank you.
I'm going to turn to Vice Mayor McGuire and Councilman Volleson for any comments or questions, and then we'll open it up to the rest of the council for any questions you may have. Vice Mayor, if you want to go first.
Thank you, Mayor. Allison, Bob, Rob, Judy, thank you all for coming down. I really appreciate the presentation, and it was very informative. And I think the main thing I would say is thank you. And I think you've really set a good example for how we can collaborate and do public-private partnerships. We know that everything is more expensive these days, but this is expensive work to fix up a historic building. And so I feel like we can't do it without your help and the public's help. So I think it's really cool that Friends of Mountain View exists, that you're helping and working so collaboratively with Parks and Rec. So I just really appreciate that. And thank you. I will take you up on the offer to come out sometime and get another tour.
Please.
And I'll just throw out to everyone, our urban forestry director, Bill West, once I met him out there for a tour. The trees in the back of the house, I think he told me were virgin trees. So there were 300 to 500-year-old oaks that the Fishburnes did not, intentionally left up when they built the house. So it's definitely a special place. If you're like me, a tree person, it's kind of cool to go out and sit under 400-year-old oak trees. So I look forward to the glow up. I think it definitely needs it, and hopefully getting us a facility that can continue serving the city for another 100 some years.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Peter?
Mayor, thank you all for coming and presenting today. As a kid, I watched Mountain View kind of fall into disrepair and be it's a beautiful house that's just kind of there off of this main street that wasn't being used for much. And to see what you guys are planning to do, what you're making happen by creating these partnerships, by raising this money, I think it's going to be a real jewel for that neighborhood, but also for the city, for us to continue to use that facility. One of the questions I had, I know it was back in 1907, and that's probably about when landscape architecture was getting off the ground, but was there an architect who did the grounds of the Fishburne Mansion?
Not that we know of.
Okay.
The city has the original drawings by the architect, but no landscape
Landscape architect,
plans.
okay.
I will say that J.B. Fishburne's son, Parker Fishburne, was an avid gardener. And I think he used the greenhouse. He maybe even there's a national article written about him was it orchids or irises? Irises that he raised or grew there. So some of it may have come from him.
I think that's probably the part that I have not seen, is I've always gone, like you said, to the main building and not gone around the actual property. And that can be even more beautiful in the springtime, I'm sure. So again, I want to thank you guys for coming in, for talking with us, and for letting us know the great progress that you guys have made. And we look forward to working with y'all to make this a reality and get the house in its final glow up, as Vice Mayor said.
All right, questions from council. Ms. Powers?
I want to thank you also too. Sometimes back, my husband worked part-time for Parks and Rec, worked with Cindy, and he was there at the mansion, and he loved it. So he would come home, and I'd say, well, what'd you do today? And he said, oh, Cindy had me repairing this, or he would repair furniture. But we got a call one day from one of our friends who said that they were cleaning out her grandmother's place, and she said, we've got this old piece of furniture. Tom said, what is it? Well, it ended up being a Victrola that was built the same time as the Fishburne Mansion. And so he said, yes, I want it. He took it, he fixed it all up, and we've donated it to the Fishburne Mansion. So thank you for doing this. We love the Fishburne Mansion, and we do appreciate everything that you're doing. So let us know whatever I can do to help. We'll be there to help you.
Got a couple million?
Huh? You know what? If I won the lottery, I definitely will help you.
Well, 1.1 now.
Please let your husband know that we
Oh,
are
he's
aware
already
of all
said
that he's
that.
done.
He's already said if he came into a lot of money, the first thing he'd do was donate it to fix up the Fishburne Mansion.
Well, we appreciate that.
Thank you.
Other council members? Mr. Hagan?
So thank you all for presenting. I would love to take you all up on that tour. So
please.
Yes.
We will make that happen.
Yeah, appreciate that.
Reaching out to you and making arrangements. Once the weather kind of breaks.
Yes.
It's about 15 degrees and windy. But yeah, we will definitely reach out to you guys and ladies to arrange that. So,
Yeah, we'd be happy to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Nash.
What history do we know about B? Like, who was she and what did she do? And
We're working with the family, and Judy, you may know more about B. She was the cook, B. Jones. And part of our plan would be, it's not necessarily in this, but I probably know of an organization in town that might partner with them to do an interpretive sign. So that would be, we definitely want to tell that story because it's part of the history, and it's something that people need to know about, not only the Fishburns, but the servants that that supported them and in their home, because that was a big part of that house. And I think Mary Louise Kegley, who I guess is the great granddaughter, yes, is that right? Yes, great granddaughter of J.B. Fishburne. She's on our board, and she's been working with the family and trying to pull together photographs, along with Judy, who's kind of our resident historian and volunteer extraordinaire, to really be able to tell that story. And I even think that the Craigheads, is that their names? That were the chauffeur and his wife that lived in the apartment. We've even made contact with a descendant of theirs. So
So there
we
was
will,
B, and then there was a cook and a driver that lived on the property for the families.
yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and actually B didn't live on the property, but she stayed there when there were I mean, she was there working every day, but when there were large events, she stayed in that house.
Stayed in that cottage. Okay.
But it wasn't that she didn't live there full time.
Cool. Thank you for the information. I always think it's important. I feel like there's always multiple histories and timelines, and, you have folks that are living in the nice, luxurious house, right? And then, you have other people's stories who are just as important, and people who really did the work to keep that house maintained, keep the lawn looking good. We don't know fully, the full scope of it, but I always tell people that there's multiple histories that we can't forget. And we have to do our best to try to write down and record all the perspectives of history too, because everyone's perspective of history is different.
Oh,
So
yeah.
thank
And
you.
that was finding a place for the elevator really was driven by that, because one obvious place was the butler's pantry area. And we said, no, we want to be able to interpret how this house was operated, because they were the people that really kept it running. And then we also learned, if you're ever in the house, the ADA restroom that's at the very back behind the kitchen, that was originally the servants' dining room. And we didn't know that until we started really digging into the plans and everything. And we want to be able to interpret that as well.
We
Thank y'all
actually
for that.
named the structure Bee's Cottage because it didn't have a name. And so as we started delving into this, it was like, well, let's do this to the outbuilding. Well, which outbuilding? The chicken coop, the carriage house, the green, so we intentionally called it Bee's Cottage just to recognize her importance to the property and the family.
Yeah, and that was kind of at the request of the family,
Yeah.
with their permission and support. So,
Thank y'all.
Pretty good. Pretty cool
Okay.
stuff.
well, thank you all
Thank you all
again for your support. And we look forward
you.
to touring you around the property. And thanks to Cindy for.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm behind you.
Moving on in our agenda this afternoon, we're going to a briefing, and I'm going to invite our city manager, Ms. Turner, to introduce the briefing, which is focused on an update on our council member initiatives.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to turn it over to Deputy City Manager Angie O'Brien. Ms. O'Brien is going to go over the status of the current council member initiatives. And we want specific direction on one of them because we are looking, and she'll go through, we're looking to combine several of them as we are doing community engagement. And so we wanted to hear from council on if that is something that you all want us to do. And if not, we would need to take them one at a time, and we need to prioritize which ones we need to take immediately.
Thank you, Ms. Turner. And before I get started, I do want to make sure what I'm presenting to you all today is just the recommendation. And as she said, we welcome your feedback at the end of the presentation. So thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and members of City Council. I'm here to provide an update on several council member initiatives underway in the city of Roanoke. Today's briefing will cover 5 initiatives. The Hope and Home Task Force focused on the homelessness and unhoused solutions, updates to the city zoning code, including a combined council member initiative such as the vape ordinance, the study of adopted zoning reforms to expand housing options, and Evans Spring updates and the Virginia Recreational Facilities Authority Modernization Initiative to enhance regional recreational assets. And I'll provide an overview of where each initiative is, its timelines, and its anticipated community impacts. Last council meeting, community engagement was able to provide a video update on the Hope and Home Task Force. But just to encapsulate that report into this one, I'm going to give another brief update on the Hope and Home Task Force. This is a volunteer group convened by the mayor and supported by this council. It brings together residents, businesses, and nonprofit partners and people with lived experience working alongside researchers from Virginia Tech. Their charge is to develop practical, data-informed recommendations in addressing homelessness in a cohesive, comprehensive, and realistic way. The group is on an accelerated schedule, aiming to deliver its final recommendations to you, the council, in August of 2026. Since the kickoff meeting on September 17th, the task force has been working through 4 subgroups, each focused on different dimensions of our homelessness response. They are currently mapping what we already know as a community and determining the additional data and insight needed. A number of cross-cutting themes are already emerging, including shortages in affordable housing, behavioral health challenges, and limits on shelter and day service, transportation barriers, and the ongoing concerns raised by our businesses and our neighborhoods. These themes are going to guide the next phase of their work. The task force asked for a faster process than what was initially recommended. And the city and Virginia Tech have developed a 12-month plan. Subgroups will finalize their initial assessments by the end of December. Draft recommendations that will be developed and refined in early 2026, followed by community input in April and May. After revisions and a vote in July, the final set of endorsed recommendations will be delivered to council in August of 2026. The next phase includes deeper discovery by the subgroups and support from Virginia Tech on the best practices in research. Public engagement opportunities will begin this spring. And while long-term solutions are being developed, the immediate needs continue, especially as the temperatures drop, such as today. We encourage residents to support our shelters, our day centers, food banks, and clothing drives, which provide essential services right now as the immediate need continues. The next 3 council member initiatives we're going to be updating on are clarifying the City of Roanoke zoning code. This effort combines 3 related projects. And again, as Ms. Turner acknowledged, we're hoping to be able to encapsulate these 3. However, that will be what we'll gather your feedback on. 2 of the initiatives, which were initiated by Councilmember Nash, the proposed vape ordinance and Evans Spring zoning updates. The other on reviewing the text amendments initiated by Councilmember Hagan. By combining these initiatives into a single process, we aim to ensure consistency, efficiency, and clear regulations for our community. Our target for City Council adoption on the proposed amendments is April 20th of 2026. The timeline for these initiatives balances thorough review with efficiency. We began the project kickoff and the scoping in November and December, defining the purpose and the scope for each amendment. Research and drafting of the proposed text amendments will occur through January of 2026. Public engagement and stakeholder input will take place from January through February, including open houses and meetings with neighborhood groups, developers, and business associations. Staff will then brief the Planning Commission and City Council in February and/or March, leading up to the City Council adoption scheduled for April. After adoption, or if adoption, We will implement these changes, update the online zoning code, and notify stakeholders while training staff on these updates. The next steps include research and drafting, conducting public engagement, and incorporating stakeholder input. Staff will prepare the Planning Commission and City Council briefings and hearings to ensure the amendments are clear, actionable, and responsive to community needs. While we are moving as quickly as possible, it is important to remember that these are special projects with staffing limitations. Balancing speed with efficiency ensures we produce high-quality, well-considered zoning updates that will serve the city effectively. In summary, this coordinated approach allows us to efficiently advance multiple initiatives while ensuring thorough review, public input, and successful adoption by City Council. These council member initiatives are special projects, again, outside the normal day-to-day work of our planning department. They were created to provide an avenue for staff to address specific council member concerns. Currently, the planning department is about 10 positions down, and we are currently working very hard to fill those vacancies. Last week, we were able to make an offer. However, I'm not sure at this point if that has been accepted. We do not have the capacity to really run separate processes for each initiative. So by combining these three, we can maintain quality, coordination, and make efficient use of our limited staffing while still moving these projects forward. The last initiative I'm providing an update on is initiated by Councilmember Volosson. This initiative focuses on modernizing the Virginia Recreational Facilities Authority, or the VRFA, which I'll refer to ongoing, to manage and to fund key recreational assets. These include the Roanoke River Greenway, Carvin's Cove, Mill Mountain Park, and River's Edge. The goal is to create a sustainable long-term approach to maintain and improve these facilities for both residents and our visitors. The initiative is designed to tackle long-standing funding gaps and operational challenges. By modernizing the VRFA, the city and regional partners can secure long-term funding, improve access and quality of recreational facilities, and strengthen the Roanoke Valley's competitiveness in attracting visitors, hosting events, and supporting economic development. Work on this initiative will begin soon. Staff will develop an administrative plan for interim management and draft a proposed organizational structure. The regional funding strategy will be developed, and discussions will be initiated with Roanoke County, Salem, and Vinton. Once these steps are complete, the VRFA board will review and vote on the proposed changes, and the bylaws and the policies will be updated if approved. This initiative will have broad benefits for the community. Residents will enjoy improved and more accessible recreational opportunities, while visitors and businesses benefit from enhanced tourism. Funding for these improvements is designed to primarily come from outside travelers and tourism-related to sources, reducing the burden on the city's budget and ensuring long-term sustainability. In closing, these council member initiatives represent focused efforts on improving housing, development, and recreational opportunities for the city of Roanoke. Timelines for key deliverables are set, with the Hope and Home Task Force again making recommendations this summer, zoning updates in April, and the VRFA work commencing shortly. Community engagement and input will continue to be an important part of each of these initiatives. So thank you. I want to open it up to any questions that you may have that myself or the city manager or maybe Deputy City Manager Roman would be able to help answer.
Thank you, Ms. O'Brien, for that really great update and overview. I think you've conveyed to us the challenges of all of these initiatives are important and have their own merit. We're also cognizant of challenges we have with enough personnel to address this in addition to their daily work. So I think you've brought to us a really helpful approach. But I want to open it up to council for initial feedback and questions as we move forward. Mr. Nash.
Thank you for your time and thank you for that presentation. And my only comment or sentiment is, you know, the I understand the grouping for the rezoning for Evans Spring, but the one that I have to just say that I do feel some sort of way about is the vape shop initiative. That is something that I first engaged with staff about in January. One of my first meetings was about that. I followed it up again later in spring for a status on it. It was getting worked on. Then it wasn't. I did the CMI. Now it is getting worked on. I've been thankful to work with and, have a few meetings with um, with Miss Jillian and David, David Collins from the city attorney's office. But I just feel that, I hear and I am very sympathetic to the short staffedness within the department, which is why I think that for the vape shop initiative, with it being a issue that isn't controversial unless you're a vape shop owner that likes to sell kratom and other dangerous substances that are highly addictive and damaging to our youth in a predatory way, I've not heard anyone come out negatively and speak against, but instead I've heard people come out in full support of something that cracks down on these vape shops, the hemp stores that don't function properly under the Virginia Department of Agricultural's regulation for hemp stores. And so I would just ask and would love to hear my colleagues' opinions on, we've done other zoning changes where we did not go through a long, lengthy public engagement process. I don't know what the legal standing is. I don't know if there's a legal reason why the vape shop initiative has to go through this, like a public engagement process like the mass rezoning or like Evans Springs, which is something that, in my mind, like those are two very big, very important, very community changing things. To me, the vape shop initiative is important, absolutely, but it's not to the same scale of the other two. So I don't know what's the shortest legal process we could take for the vape shop initiative, or if it's just public notice, public hearing, and then council vote on it, or if there is a reason why it has to go through such a lengthy process.
Mr. Spencer.
Two things, if I can. One of the things with the vape shop initiative is that we need to go through planning, go through that process, and that is a legal process, and that those items will be grandfathered if the zoning changes are made that are recommended. We're looking to do that. I've talked to staff on that, and I think that is in the works in the next round of text amendments, which are coming up as part of it. One of the most unique things that I've heard, and I think has a great deal of promise as part of council's legislative agenda, and that is I understand that vaping or vape products are not taxed the same as cigarettes. Preliminarily, there's been positive feedback. That's going to require the General Assembly. And our office, I know, is willing to work with anyone to ensure that that happens. And my sense is that a majority of council has received that well, shall I say, that idea. And we believe that there is a local legislator who would be willing to sponsor that legislation. So there are things that are ongoing that are other than the presentation that Ms. O'Brien gave that are still in the works and moving forward. I hope that's of help. We work with staff to try to move this as quickly as possible.
Yeah. Can I ask one follow-up? Oh, no, you can go ahead, Evelyn.
Yeah, go ahead, Fajon, while we're on this.
So I guess my primary question was, after because the taxation of these products is outside the scope of what the initiative was originally. I mean, it's a
Correct.
great compliment. Don't get me wrong. I would love for that to happen. Absolutely. But that process is outside of the intent of the initial scope of the CMI. So I don't want anything that's not within the scope of the CMI to bog down the process
I don't
for
believe it
the
would.
CMI.
It's something that came up that another council member brought up, and I believe they've spoken with you about it to see if that should support, just to give another tool in the toolbox, if you will,
Yeah.
how to combat and make sure that we promote the safety of our youth within the city as it pertains to vaping.
So what after the drafting of, working with planning, we have the draft. What is the timeline to what's the legal process to get that implemented as quickly as possible? Like the point in the question I was trying to ask.
Okay, what we'll do on that, initially, we would like to come back, get a resolution to say, hey, we'd like these changes, send it to the planning commission, advertise the public hearing, planning commission votes on that, and then it comes back before council for final consideration. That process should, if we moved it today, should be able to be done within the next 3 months. And I would move it as fast as possible because I would love to see that beat my retirement.
I would too, because my only fear, and then I'll be done after this, Mayor, but my only fear is that in the time since January and since the CMI has been put in, down the street from my house in what was an old pawn shop has been converted into a vape and novelty store. And I've seen another one pop up on Melrose, and then I've seen an additional one on Williamson Road pop up as well. And so, yeah, some of these are going to be grandfathered, I understand, but that's my concern is the longer we wait, the more of these pop up, the less effective it's going to be, and the more available commercial spaces that could have been used for a variety of productive businesses are being taken up by, vape shops and
If
novelty
you would like
stores.
me to work with staff, I will work with staff and the city manager to move this part of the initiative
Mr. Mayor.
forward as quickly as possible.
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, Ms. Turner.
Thank you. So it still boils down to staff capacity, and that's what we have been trying to convey. Because we are down in planning, and we didn't just get 10 positions down today. It's been for some time that we have been trying to ensure that we have the appropriate number of staff that can move a lot of this forward and still do the day-to-day. So even the process that Mr. Spencer denoted, it still has to come through planning. It still has to come through the planning staff. So we need to understand from council, if you want this to be a standalone for us to work on this to make sure that we can do this in 3 months, we can do that. But the other two initiatives will have to be put on hold while we do that, because we don't have the staff capacity to do all three at the same time.
Mr. Mayor? Oh. Go ahead.
Whose hand was up first? Ms. Powers? Okay.
So just quickly, I'll just tell you, I did reach out to a delegate and his legislative aide, and we did talk about getting the vape items on a bill to tax like they do cigarettes. They were not aware of that. I believe the e-cigarette itself is taxed, but the vape items are not. And so, that would be additional revenue, not only to the state, but to the locality. So I've got my fingers crossed that he'll be able to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Powers. Mr. Bellison, and then we'll go over here to Mr. Hagan.
So I just wanted to comment on, even with Mr. Spencer, if we were to push this under him, he even said that would be a 3-month process. So we're only looking at a month difference here because we're looking at an August 20 council resolution for the zoning amendments. So I think, given where our planning department is, that this is a wise way of doing it and opening the zoning amendments for all of these different things and doing it as once. I think that's why we did the zoning amendments the way we did, We didn't want to do it piecemeal and doing each thing. We did it all at once, so that everybody could see what everything was happening, and you also had a more effective use of staff time and resources. And that's why I don't think there's going to be an issue with getting that past the finish line. And I understand why you're feeling rushed by it because of what's being, the ones that are coming up, that are popping up. So I totally get it. But I also, 10 planners is a lot of people. 10 staff members, I don't know if they're all planners, but 10 staff members is a lot of people. And I just think that it's wise for us to stay with this route of putting those three together, just because they're all have to do with zoning amendments and the planning department. And that's where I think we should go with this.
Thank you. Mr. Hagan.
So I have a slightly procedural question that might kind of spiral. So when when the Evan Springs vote was to incorporate the recommendations of the consultants into the master plan, so this would have been before I was on council. This would have been in, I think, 24, right? Did that touch the zoning amendments, or is it just an incorporation of the master plan?
The incorporation of a master plan, which is different than text amendments.
Okay.
But it went through a very similar process.
Yeah. Okay. That's what I had the question about.
There was public engagement as well as
I'm aware.
public hearing.
Yeah. The only reason why I bring that up is that it wouldn't necessarily touch the zoning code. So but I will defer to obviously experts on this. I am not one.
It's just about the planning department. They would still be the group that would need to do the work.
Okay, that was my question. I understand the constraints of staffing. I'm okay with April as much as long as this has gone on, as many people know. That's it. That's all I got.
I think, yeah, sure, Mr. Nash.
I'm still gonna feel some type of way, right? But I want to say I understand the staffing challenges. I really do. But it's just, it's just how I feel, and I just wanted to voice that. And I think 2 points I'll make really quickly is one, I think folks at home, when we're talking about like budgets, and I've had people reach out about like all these positions we created and these 5 positions, like people don't understand, like everyone wants a well-functioning, well-running government. And it takes people to do that. And that involves us hiring people. It involves us reorganizing the organizational structure of how people fall under certain people. And so I want people at home and in the audience to understand that if we want a city that operates appropriately and runs smoothly, we have to have people power to do that, and we have to have employees to do that. And then the last thing I will end on is I don't want to bog down Evan Springs or the zoning amendment changes. We just had citizens come out today and speak about how long they've been waiting. So I don't want to bog or pause any of that work. So if April 20th is the day we're looking at to have all 3 of these, or one of these come before us, then so be it. But I just wanted to share my sentiments.
Thank you.
So thank you all for that input. I think I think overall this is a really good approach. I think we have a clear timeline to work with, and all of this is on a pathway to be concluded, wrapped up in the next 6 to 9 months, which I think is ambitious. Just saying, with all the moving parts, having seen this work for 8 years now, I appreciate ambition, so that's good. One of the challenges, I think, with figuring out the public engagement, and council members have alluded to this, each of these are particularly unique. They have different focus areas. So I think the challenge is going to be, particularly if we do combined public engagement, I don't want any of these to be diluted or anything to get lost. So one of the things I think we need to keep in mind in our planning is that I think each of these have some unique stakeholders in them that we need to connect with. So, I mean, Mr. Nash, you mentioned from input you've received, there are a lot of people in support of the vaping ordinance, but maybe the business owners aren't. So,
Only one of them emailed me.
but what I'm saying is that, you know, there's a sector of the business community that we would need to get some input from on this, to understand better from their situation, what they support, what they don't. In the meantime, tracking what's happening with potential taxation in the General Assembly. The zoning amendments, we know we have a group of people who are ready to engage in that. And I would say on that, the sooner the better. They've been very patient, and I think we've been working hard at this. I appreciate Council Members Volleson and Hagan on moving forward with that. But the last thing we want to hear is that nobody sat down to talk with us.
Sure.
You know, so I think that's what we want to move forward quickly on. And then on Evans Spring, you know, it's an opportunity to evaluate the plan that was adopted, to have some community engagement. Again, those are three very unique things. So I would just encourage, if we keep those as part of the whole in a path forward, that we figure out who the key stakeholders are that we can have conversations with. And not just try and, well, I'll just say that. Unique stakeholders, collective stakeholders. I think we just have to keep an eye on that. I want to commend the Hope and Home Task Force. I mean, the second meeting in, they said, we want to do this quicker. And so they, on their own accord, have moved things up more quickly. So I think I'm excited about that. And then, you know, the movement on the VRFA authority. So I think what would be helpful is, I appreciate this update. I think it would be helpful, at least on a monthly basis, to come back to us and share how that's going. Just to mark the progress and see if there are any challenges, and if there are ways that we as council members can be proactive in helping identify stakeholders that we feel like need to be engaged in that, and as well as just the general public engagement. I think that would be helpful too.
Absolutely.
Okay. Good. All right. Thank you all. Thank you. All right, we have a number of items recommended for action. The first is acquisition. That's a exciting new word. Not sure what it means, but acquisition of real property rights for the downstream Wiley Drive Bridge replacement project. We have one ordinance. We have one measure and ordinance. Do I have a motion and second on the ordinance?
Move the ordinance.
Second.
Thank you, Council Members Volleson and Powers. Madam Clerk, will you please read the title paragraph?
An ordinance providing for the acquisition of real property rights needed by the city in connection with the downstream Wiley Drive Bridge replacement project, authorizing city staff to acquire such property rights by negotiation for the city, authorizing the city manager or designee to execute appropriate acquisition documents, and dispensing with the second reading of this ordinance by title.
Thank you. Ms. Turner, do you have anything to add?
Mr. Mayor, thank you. The project, supported by previously approved VDOT funding, will enhance environmental conditions along the Roanoke River and improve public safety and recreational access. Thank you.
Thank you. I know when we get to the council report back that we'll hear an update. A citizen spoke, I think, at our last meeting about greenway access during the construction of this. I just wanted to remind us of that and ways we could possibly consider rerouting the greenway during that time. Any other questions or discussion by members of council on this ordinance? All right, Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Hagan.
Aye.
Ms. Sanchez Jones. Vice Mayor McGuire.
Aye.
Mr. Nash.
Aye.
Mr. Volleson.
Aye.
Ms. Powers. And Mayor Cobb.
Aye, and the ordinance is adopted. Item B is the acceptance and appropriation of fiscal year 24 HUD Continuum of Care Grant Award for Continuum of Care Planning. There's one measure and ordinance, and I'll entertain a motion and second.
Move the ordinance.
Thank you, Council Members Nash and Sanchez Jones. Madam Clerk, will you please read the title paragraph?
An ordinance accepting the FY 2024 Continuum of Care Planning Grant from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development to the City of Roanoke in the amount of $133,000. $133,237,000, authorizing the city to serve as the fiscal agent for the distribution of such funds, authorizing the city manager or designee to execute any required documents necessary to accept such funds, appropriating FY 2024 grant funds detailed more fully infra, and dispensing with the second reading of this ordinance by title.
Thank you. Ms. Turner, anything to add?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. The HUD COC, or Continuum of Care Planning Funds, pay for activities related to the coordination of our local homeless response system. These activities include the development of submission of the annual HUD funding application, developing community-level policies and procedures, refining our community's coordinated entry system, evaluating funded projects, providing administrative support to the COC governing board, and coordinating training opportunities for partners on best practice and service delivery. I have with me today Mr. Cruikshank or Ms. Gwen, if you have any additional questions.
Thank you. Mr. Cruikshank, welcome. Glad you're here today. I know you've been facing some challenging weeks of late with the NOFO. Would you be willing to give us an update on the NOFO funding and what the status of that is?
Sure. So this, the appropriation of these funds is FY '24. So these are the current grant year funds. So 2 weeks ago, HUD, or actually beginning in November, HUD released the FY '25 Notice of Funding Opportunity, essentially, which is the NOFO, which is how most of our services that are programs that receive federal funds are funded through that NOFO process. So last Monday, HUD rescinded that NOFO, but there were significant changes when the NOFO was originally released, which will limit the amount of funds that are available in the community for permanent housing activities, primarily permanent supportive housing, which is essentially the services that we try to target to our most chronically homeless, highest need households. So that's really a critical resource in the community. So that funding change will essentially cut one of our programs by about 50%. So we'll be losing about $350,000 with that policy change. With the NOFO rescission, HUD's making some adjustments to that NOFO. We don't know yet what those adjustments are going to be, but we're assuming that policy change that limits permanent housing funding is going to be in the revised NOFO when that's released. So next year, when those funds hit the community, we'll have a reduction in that permanent housing money, which will have a big impact.
Thank you for that extra explanation, but I think it's important for us to understand some of the funding that's very vulnerable right now for some of the most vulnerable people in our community. So I'm glad we are at least receiving this grant award and can vote to adopt it today. Any other discussion or questions by council? Ms. Powers?
Question, does that funding reduction have anything, does it cut the organization Renovation Alliance?
No, Renovation Alliance doesn't receive
So-
any COC funding. This, that program would be Commonwealth Catholic Charities as a grantee for our permanent supportive housing money that will be cut. Yep.
Thank you.
Sure. Other questions? Ms. Sanchez Jones?
Hi, how you doing? My question is, did you get grants from the local churches? Do they help out?
We do. We receive monthly allotments from funds from about 12 local churches that help fill service gaps with our homelessness prevention dollars. And that's part of our coordinated entry grant that we receive from the state. So those churches really that's a critical resource that's not tied to grant restrictions to help folks that are at risk of homelessness maintain housing. Sure.
questions? All right, Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Hagan,
Aye.
Ms. Sanchez Jones,
Aye.
Vice Mayor McGuire,
Aye.
Mr. Nash,
Aye.
Mr. Volleson,
Aye.
Ms. Powers,
Aye.
and Mayor Cobb.
Aye, and the ordinance is adopted. Item C is the acceptance and appropriation of the Virginia Department of Housing and Community Development Virginia Homeless Solutions Program Grant Award. We have one measure and ordinance, and I'll entertain a motion and second.
Move the ordinance.
Second.
Thank you, council members Hagan and Volleson. Madam Clerk, will you please read the title paragraph?
An ordinance accepting the Virginia Homeless Solutions Program Grant Award from the Virginia Department of Housing and Community Development, authorizing execution of any required documents on behalf of the city of Roanoke, authorizing the city to serve as fiscal agent for disbursement of the grant, appropriating funds detailed more fully infra, and dispensing with the second reading of this ordinance by title.
Thank you. Ms. Turner, anything
Thank
to
you,
add?
Mr. Mayor. The Virginia Homeless Solutions Program funds are our community's primary source of state funds dedicated to our homeless response. The city portion of these funds pay for a staff position in our Human Services Department to operate the community's coordinated entry system. Planning funds received by the city through this grant pay for activities related to the operation and coordination of our local homeless response system, to include data collection and reporting, submission of funding application, and coordinating meetings of the Continuum of Care committees and subcommittees. The planning funds are subcontracted to the COC's planning entity, the Council of Community Services.
Mr. Cruikshank, anything you want to add to that? Okay. Any questions or discussion by members of council? All right, Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Hagan,
Aye.
Ms. Sanchez Jones,
Aye.
Vice Mayor McGuire,
Aye.
Mr. Nash,
Aye.
Mr. Volleson,
Aye.
Ms. Powers, and Mayor Cobb.
Aye, the ordinance is adopted. Item D is the acceptance and appropriation of fiscal year 26 United Way of Virginia's Blue Ridge funding for the Bank on Roanoke Valley program. We have one ordinance, or one measure and ordinance, and I'll entertain a motion and second.
Second.
Thank you, council members Powers and Volleson. Madam Clerk, please read the title paragraph.
An ordinance authorizing the acceptance of the FY26 United Way of Roanoke Valley funding for the Bank on Roanoke Valley program to the city of Roanoke from the United Way of Roanoke Valley for program management and activities of the Bank on Roanoke Valley program, authorizing execution of any required documentation on behalf of the city required to accept such funding, appropriating funds detailed more fully infra, and dispensing with the second reading of this ordinance by title.
Any additional information on that, Ms. Turner?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Bank on Roanoke Valley works through a coalition of financial institutions, local government, nonprofits to empower Roanoke Valley residents with financial knowledge by offering biannual 6-month Bank on Wellness classes, leading the annual Roanoke Valley Saves Week, participating in a community resource events, and promoting positive financial habits that support long-term financial stability.
Thank you. And I also want to acknowledge Brandon McGinley from our Economic Development team who works with Bank on Roanoke Valley. Thank you. All right, any discussion from council? Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Hagan,
Aye.
Ms. Sanchez Jones, Vice Mayor McGuire,
Aye.
Mr. Nash,
Aye.
Mr. Volleson,
Aye.
Ms. Powers, and Mayor Cobb.
Aye, and the ordinance is adopted. Item E is the acceptance and appropriation of the Virginia Department of Emergency Management Fiscal Year 26 NG 911 Additional Funding Grant Award. We have one measure and ordinance, and I'll entertain a motion and second.
Resolution.
Second.
All right, thank you, council members Volleson and Nash. Madam Clerk, will you please read the title paragraph?
An ordinance authorizing the acceptance of the Virginia Department of Emergency Management FY26 Next Generation 911 Additional Funding Grant Award through the Commonwealth of Virginia, Virginia 911 Services Board, authorizing execution of any required documents on behalf of the city, appropriating funds detailed more fully infra, and dispensing with the second reading of this ordinance by title.
Thank you. Ms. Turner, anything to add?
Just a little bit, yes. The new call handling equipment that will be purchased will pave the way for our residents to access 911 services with next generation 911 capabilities to include a real-time video, photos, and AI assistance. And Ms. Roman is here should you have any additional questions.
Welcome, Ms. Roman. Any questions? Ms. Roman, is there anything you'd like to add? No. Okay. All right, Madam Clerk, I think we're ready to call the roll.
Mr. Hagan?
Aye.
Ms. Sanchez Jones? Vice Mayor McGuire?
Aye.
Mr. Nash?
Aye.
Mr. Volleson?
Aye.
Ms. Powers?
Aye.
And Mayor Cobb?
Aye, and the ordinance is adopted. Item F is the acceptance and appropriation of the Virginia Department of Emergency Management fiscal year 26 CHE Shared Call Handling Equipment Grant Award. There's one measure and ordinance, and I'll entertain a motion and second.
Move the ordinance.
Thank you, Councilmember Nash and Vice Mayor McGuire. Madam Clerk, will you please read the title paragraph?
An ordinance authorizing the acceptance of the Virginia Department of Emergency Management FY26 CHE Shared Call Handling Equipment Grant Award through the Commonwealth of Virginia, Virginia 911 Services Board, authorizing execution of any required documents on behalf of the city, appropriating funds detailed more fully in FRA, and dispensing with the second reading of this ordinance by title.
Thank you. Ms. Turner?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This grant award provides an opportunity for the city to maintain and enhance the operational environment of the 911 center. The funding will directly benefit team performance, workplace safety, employee wellness, and operational resilience. Again, Ms. Roman is here to answer any questions should you have any additional.
Thank you. Anything you'd like to add, Ms. Roman? Okay. Any questions or comments from council? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Hagan?
Aye.
Ms. Sanchez Jones? Vice Mayor McGuire?
Aye.
Mr. Nash?
Aye.
Mr. Volleson?
Aye.
Ms. Powers? And Mayor Cobb.
Aye, and the ordinance is adopted. Thank you all. Next, we have comments of our city manager. Ms. Turner?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor McGuire, and city council members. I have 5 comments today. Number 1, bag leaf collection has been extended through January 15th, 2026 in response to the recent service delays caused by the wintry weather conditions. Number 2, the city's homeless assistance team has made a remarkable impact this year, successfully helping 226 individuals secure housing in 2025. Their dedication and hard work are a critical part of our ongoing efforts to address homelessness in Roanoke. Number 3, I want to encourage everyone to register for the 2026 Roanoke 100 Miler, a community wellness challenge starting this January. Participants can run, walk, or hike 100 miles in 100 days, with the option to substitute 1 mile with 30 minutes of any human-powered activity to ensure accessibility for all fitness levels. This program is a great way to build community connections, develop long-term healthy habits, and enjoy some friendly motivation. Plus, participants are eligible for weekly prize drawings, and the challenge is open to everyone in the community. Number 4, warming shelter center information is on our website and on our social media. We have 5 different agencies that are open. We have the Ram House, which is open till 4. The Hope Center of 11th Street, which is open till 7. The least of these ministries is open from 10:30 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. and the bus will open tonight at 9 p.m. Number 4, the Rescue Mission of Roanoke. They're providing transportation to the Ram House, and they will be open at 3 today. And last but certainly not least, our libraries are open. This information again is on our website and social media. And lastly, I would like to introduce a new staff member, Mr. Desi Winter. He is our new, you can stand up. Mr. Winter is our new Housing Programs and Policy Officer. He is a career affordable housing development professional. His portfolio features the redevelopment of public housing communities, the development of single-family housing, the construction of new mixed-income complexes, and the historic preservation of aging affordable housing. grassroots engagement with residents affected by redevelopment and collaboration with all levels of government are central to his projects. Mr. Winter has managed many multi-million-dollar mixed finance projects, and he has worked with community development block grants, housing tax credits, the city's affordable housing trust programs, and if he looks familiar, he a few years ago used to work for our housing authority here for 4 years. So I'd like to just welcome Mr. Winter.
Welcome. Glad to have you here. Welcome back.
Those conclude my comments.
Thank you. And next I'll have you move, I guess Ms. Hedrick is probably going to do this, our public matters follow-up.
Over to Ms. Hedrick.
It's a miracle that I remembered it today.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council. Just a couple of follow-up items today. Nick Hauk was the resident that spoke, I believe at the previous council meeting. His property is on Preakness Court and straddles the city-county boundary line. So Mr. Collins, our deputy city attorney, did provide the whole process for that voluntary boundary line adjustment, which is rather extensive. But just in general terms, both localities would need to prepare a written statement agreeing to this boundary line adjustment. Then there would be a public hearing, and finally the court would have to be petitioned to authorize such an agreement. He did mention that in the past, these adjustments have primarily been made for a large-scale project or the owner of a very large parcel of property, but they are working on and having a conversation with the resident soon regarding the potential that exists there. And Mayor, this is the one that you mentioned, Garrett Robinson, who's a member of both Pedal Safe Roanoke and Strong Towns, did speak about the greenway access around Smith Park and how important that is for cyclists and other greenway users. So I did share his concerns with Renee Powers, who's our, just completely lost my train of thought. Sorry, our Trails and Greenways coordinator. And I will make sure that I keep you posted and then also communicate with Mr. Robinson and Pedal Safe as we know kind of if there are changes and what the updates are in keeping that accessibility there and all of that. And lastly, specifically over the last two council meetings, we've had a lot of residents that have spoken about school funding and about the potential for a casino. We don't have any particular updates or action items related to those, but I always feel like it's important that folks understand that you do hear, and that's why we do this report, even if there isn't a particular item that we have to share or follow up to a particular item. The work that you do and the work that staff does isn't as impactful if we don't know what residents are concerned about. So I just wanted to take a quick moment kind of as we're wrapping up the year, just to let all of these folks know we really appreciate when they take time to come out. I can remember one resident that sat through the entire 7 p.m. hearing until about 9:30 at night to share his concerns. So even if there isn't a particular item related to something that someone shares, we do hear what they're saying. I know that you as mayor and council are very interested in that and make sure that you're addressing them. I know that Ms. Turner is very intentional about that as well. So again, nothing specific to share about the school budget formula or the potential for a casino, but just to remind folks that we're following up as we need to. And even if there isn't specific dialogue that occurs in the moment, we do care and we are very appreciative of the time that they take to share their thoughts and concerns with us. That is all we have for this afternoon. Thank you.
Ms. Hedrick, we appreciate it. I'm going to move now to reports of committees, and I'm delighted to welcome Ms. Angela Penn, who is the chair of our Equity Empowerment Advisory Board. And for a presentation and update, this is actually their annual report, and I can't believe it's been a year already.
Already, wow.
But welcome back. We're glad you're here.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, Mayor Cobb, Vice Mayor McGuire, members of council, City Manager Turner, and community members. Thank you for the opportunity to provide an update on the work of the Equity Empowerment Advisory Board and to share the collective voice of the community regarding the impacts of urban renewal. Over the past year, the EAB has made significant progress. We successfully continued our bi-monthly meeting schedule, transitioning away from the formerly monthly schedule, and this structure has allowed us to work more efficiently and intentionally throughout 2025. We also expanded locations where we met. Instead of gathering here in the conference room, we held meetings within the community libraries. And this year, we were pleased to welcome 3 new board members, Sally McQuinn, Brianna Apgar, and Juan Mejia. Their perspectives, energy, and expertise has enriched the work of the board. A major component of our work has been the continued refinement of the city's draft acknowledgement of harm and apology. To support this effort, the board held community listening sessions and input sessions. During these sessions, community members shared deep personal stories about the impact of urban renewal, what healing and restitution mean to them, and the actions they would like to see the city take to make amends for the harm caused by urban renewal. I would also like to note that we currently have 1 vacancy on the EAB. We respectfully encourage council to fill this position as soon as possible to ensure that the board can continue to work with full capacity. As we begin our discussion on urban renewal, I will share some information for historical context. On May 2nd, 1955, City Council approved Ordinance Number 12381, which approved the plan for the Commonwealth Project. In the ordinance, it listed items based on surveys completed in 1953 by the Roanoke Redevelopment and Housing Authority. Those items were as follows. The Commonwealth Project consisted of 83.5 acres, being predominantly residential. Of the 438 residential structures within the Commonwealth Project, 76 were deemed substandard. 248 were noted as completely dilapidated. Of the 438 residential structures, 69 had no baths, 5 no toilets, and 64 had outside privies, and 10 no electricity. The paved residential streets were too narrow and did not conform to the city's substandard or subdivision regulations. Water supply was deemed as adequate. However, some of the fire hydrants were on 4-inch mains, which was not adequate for fire protection. The building lots fell short of the requirements of the subdivision regulations in place at the time. I shared these items because they were used as the basis to label these communities as slums and ultimately gave way to the use of eminent domain. Dr. Lawrence E. Paxton, a local dentist, penned these words in the Roanoke Tribune on January 16, 1954. The people of Northwest are the lowest paid workers in our city. They have worked hard for 3 generations or more to acquire their homes, such as they may be, and to allow the law of eminent domain or any other authority to displace them just isn't right or just. The average property owner in Northeast is well over 53 years old and not in any position to assume notes or indebtedness on a new home. If council and the people of our city would consider themselves their brother's keeper and try this particular shoe on their foot to see where it pinches, I am sure they would decide against this project. And he was referring to the Commonwealth Project. As noted in the statement of harm, the urban renewal projects included the Commonwealth Project, located in Northeast Roanoke, which began in 1954 and provided for the widening of Williamson Road and building of I-581. beginning in 1961 with the initial phase completion in 1963, continued construction throughout the 90s. Number 2, the Kimball Project, located in northeast Roanoke and adjacent to the Commonwealth Project, which began in 1964 to create commercial redevelopment opportunities for the new post office, offices for Norfolk and Western Railway, and Roanoke Gas. 3, the Downtown East Project, which funded clearing of business areas between Jefferson Street and Williamson Road for new development opportunities, which included Truist, Anthem, Norfolk Southern, and Elmwood Park. 4, multiple revitalization projects in Gainsborough neighborhood beginning in 1972, which resulted in the clearance of many commercial buildings on Henry Street and Gainsborough, including the raising of homes, the relocation of a cemetery, and the dismissal of concerns from marginalized communities. And 5, the construction of Roanoke Civic Center in 1971. Additionally, in 1983, the City of Roanoke sought funding from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development to clear 23 acres in Gainsborough for a new plant, the Coca-Cola Bottling Company. The City of Roanoke acquired 120 parcels between Shenandoah, 5th Street, and Loudon Avenue. It relocated 21 businesses, 18 homeowners, 13 renters, 11 boarding house tenants, and once more in the 1990s, Gainsborough lost buildings to road construction as the City of Roanoke's widening of Wells Avenue and Gainsborough Road removed even more homes and businesses in Gainsborough. Finally, in 2008, after almost 50 years, the Gainsborough Neighborhood Development Program was officially closed by the Roanoke Redevelopment and Housing Authority. Now I'd like to share some of the summaries of what we heard from community members during our listening sessions. The experiences, concerns, and recommendations they shared were both powerful and consistent. First, residents emphasized lasting emotional, cultural, and generational trauma of urban renewal. Families lost homes, churches, businesses, and generational wealth. Many feel that their stories are disappearing as elders pass away. As they expressed a strong desire for formal acknowledgement of harm, for community-led healing efforts, and the preservation of oral histories. Second, we heard clearly that rebuilding trust must be a priority. For decades, residents have experienced broken promises and sudden change in plans without their involvement. They called for greater transparency, bottom-up decision-making, and the use of community benefits agreements to ensure communities are honored and funding allocations remain consistent. Third, residents expressed deep concern about the lack of acknowledgement at sites where homes, churches, and businesses once stood. They ask for historical markers at key locations, including where the former Gilmore Elementary School stood, the Berglund Center property, and areas where entire neighborhoods were demolished, as well as interpretive displays inside the Berglund Center. They also emphasize the importance of restoring the Evans House as a meaningful act of repair. Fourth, the community raised significant concerns about Old Lick Cemetery. Many residents were disturbed to learn that 961 bodies were moved to a mass grave at Corner Springs without adequate public acknowledgement. They requested a permanent memorial, improved signage, documentation of those buried there, and better access and maintenance of the cemetery grounds. Fifth, housing and neighborhood reinvestment were major themes. Much of the housing stock in Northwest Roanoke is aging and deteriorating. Residents share that unfair compensation during urban renewal stripped families of generational wealth, making it difficult to recover. They recommended down payment assistance, home repair programs, special financing tools, and the exploration of a community land trust to promote shared ownership and long-term affordability. 6. Residents called for renewed economic opportunity. They want to see the return of professional services such as dentists, lawyers, and small businesses, and greater support for entrepreneurship. Henry Street in particular was identified as a prime location for redevelopment as a vibrant cultural and commercial district, as well as 11th Street. 7th, the community emphasized the need for youth services and public spaces. The loss of the Villa Heights Recreation Center created a major gap in services. Residents asked for a youth-focused community center, increased investment in McCadden and Washington parks, improved maintenance of public buildings, and traffic calming to support safer and more walkable neighborhoods. 8th, we heard many concerns related to education, community identity, and pride. Many young people are not familiar with the history of their community or the impacts of urban renewal. Residents encourage integrating this history into school curricula, updating city planning language to avoid terms that are triggering, some of which we heard today in the use of the term master plan, and creating neighborhood beautification programs that celebrate local pride. 9th, the proposed casino announcement at the Berglund Center caused renewed pain for many residents. For some, the announcement reopened old wounds related to the displacement that occurred on the very site. Residents asked that historical harms be addressed before any future redevelopment takes place, and that any development include appropriate memorialization. Lastly, the community stressed the need for long-term, sustainable funding for reparative investment. One widely supported suggestion was to explore a tax on the Berglund Center event and tickets, with revenue directed into a reparative community investment fund dedicated to home repairs, youth programs, economic development, and cultural preservation. In conclusion, the message from the community is clear. Acknowledgement alone is not enough. Residents are calling for meaningful, enforceable, and ongoing commitments that rebuild trust, repair harm, and honor the legacy of those impacted by urban renewal. Healing will require time, it will require transparency, and it will require a long-term partnership between the city, the EAB, and the community. As a board, we remain committed to doing this work with integrity, accountability, and respect. We thank the community for their courage and honesty, and we thank City Council for your continued support and willingness to engage in this process. We look forward to Council's review and adoption of the Statement of Harm, as well as asking through the City Manager's Office that team members focus on the ideas shared by the community and how we can move those forward to implementation. Thank you so much for your attention to this report.
Thank you, Ms. Penn. That was an excellent annual report and update. You all have been very busy this year and appreciate the thorough work you've done, not only engaging the community, but revisiting the statement of harm and potential apology, as well as outlining really tangible steps that can be taken. Do we have questions or reflections or comments from council? Mr. Volleson.
Ms. Penn, thank you so much for your leadership on this. When reading through the document that you just went through, the 10 things, I thought that was really well done, really well thought out. And I know that there are some things on here that I've discussed, and I'm looking forward to implementing some of these things. One of the items that I wanted to bring up, and I think is actually time sensitive. Speaking with Mr. Chubb and some of those that have that were part of the urban renewal, one of the things that they brought up is the mental health. And so I would kind of add this as number 11 to your list, which is, and I think it's important because most of those folks that were part of urban renewal are starting to age, getting up there in age, and we want to help them have strong mental health before they go. And so I would like to see that added on there, that, some type of mental health services that we can possibly provide to those folks that were a part of this.
Thank you so much. We had the opportunity to work with Decca Knight, who provided some guidance to us as we held these sessions, understanding the trauma that folks had experienced, and even reliving and talking about this was difficult for many people, but we appreciated their willingness to share their stories. So thank you for that comment.
Real quick.
Mr. Nash.
I just as a former I used to be on the Equity Empowerment Advisory Board, but we were working on this when I was a part of it, and Mr. Watson as well. So it's been a long time and a lot of work, and I know that the membership has really fluctuated, and you all have had roadblocks, kind of after roadblock after federal roadblock, right? So I thank you for your leadership, though. It's been consistent throughout the entire time, and your dedication. And you are busy running a very large business, I think it's safe to say. But I just thank you for your time and working with the community to capture their thoughts, their feelings, their emotions, so that we as a council can come up in the city manager's office, can come up with the best plan, and the best path forward to maybe finally bring some true acknowledgement and resolve to generations of hurt, harm, and trauma that's been caused. So thank you all.
Thank you.
So thank you for the presentation, and I am so happy that you started this off with talking about Council Resolution 12381. The reason why I bring that specific resolution up is so my family had a store over there and lived over there, and I know I don't look it, but we are Lebanese, and there was a joke that my great uncle, who ran the store there for a while, told us, and it doesn't really translate into English well, but I will try and do it justice. Is basically politicians come through Gainsborough and at elections, and you never see them again. One of the concerns that I have is that we'll approve of an apology, and that's it. And then nothing will be done. So I'm really hoping to build that trust, to actually do things where we're going to actually address these harms that communities have done. So again, I am so thankful to you and everything that you have presented. And so looking forward to seeing what we can do.
Thank you so much. And that has been one thing that the community has shared with us, is that while they are appreciative of the acknowledgement of the harm, what is even more meaningful to them will be the action that goes along with that.
That's actually a point I wanted to make, that I don't know what all the demographics looked like during this time, but I know historically, while the largest percentage of people who lived in Northeast and the Gainsborough section were African American, there were a fair number of immigrant families that lived there as well and had businesses. So I think it's important that we acknowledge that. The other thing I'm curious about, we've heard a lot about the number of businesses and homes and churches that were torn down or burned down or relocated. Do we have any, has any research been done on the migration that happened after that? Where people went, how many businesses actually relocated and reopened? I'm just curious about that, because when something that traumatic happens in a community, the energy to rebuild and go on is more often unique than common. And so I would be curious to know if we have any data, and that's something that we can look at over
Yeah.
time.
And we'd be happy to look into that data. We do know from anecdotally from what people have shared with us is that majority moved to the northwest quadrant. But as far as number of actual businesses that moved, we can do some research on that.
I think just offhand, we think of Hill Street, and not Hill Street, First Baptist Gainsborough. They located in the same area. I think High Street actually used to be in the Gainsborough area before they moved. I may be getting that wrong, but I'm not sure. The Roanoke Tribune, of course, is still going strong. Their offices were destroyed during that. So they're anecdotal examples of that, but I think that's part of our story and history too. The resilience of homeowners, businesses, churches.
Okay.
And we all have a strong commitment to move forward with this. This is an opportunity. Your presentation is an opportunity for us to review this and then talk about what next steps we want to take. Vice Mayor.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I was going to ask, just to clarify thank you, Ms. Penn, for the presentation. Good to see you. The next steps, I'm looking at the draft resolution that we have, and I also feel personally like I would want to support this with commitments towards concrete actions and not just verbal promises. So I'm looking at in the draft resolution, there are a couple of the pieces from the report woven into that. What's the process for if we had suggestions or questions about that, or are you going to bring that back to us for a request that we vote on it as is? I'm just curious about what opportunities might we have to work with you to strengthen it to kind of accomplish what I think we're saying is that we want it to be as impactful as possible.
Absolutely. The EAB meets again in January. We are happy to come to any work session that you have to go through this in more detail to make sure we have it as everyone would like to see it. So we are welcome and open to that invitation at any time.
When is that meeting?
It is the first Thursday of the full week in January, which I believe is
The 8th?
Yes. And that's at 5:30.
So I would like to ask council to take some time to review this and to incorporate, so this be an opportunity for staff to work with staff to look at this. And it's important to be aspirational in this, but also real. And that I think is the most important thing. That any step we take that is visible and qualitative and quantitative as well.
Yes.
So, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all so much.
We don't have any. So, do we have any liaison reports from boards or commissions that council members are part of? We don't have any vacancies to report at this time. We'll be utilizing one of our closed sessions to do that. So if we have some, we'll do that as part of the 7 o'clock session. Any other inquiries for us to consider? Mr. Hagan.
So Park Roanoke went to gateless garages. And I would like a report back at some point about specifically Metropolis and what type of data that they are collecting in that regard. So I would appreciate that.
Just to correct, SP Plus.
It was Metropolis.
It's
SP Plus.
It's the
Brian,
company.
you-
It's Mr. Mann, you can clarify, but I think it would be good. This is a new system for anyone visiting downtown, our parking garages, and
Good afternoon, Mayor, Council. Unexpected visit to the podium here.
And that's
So
for fun.
it is Metropolis. Metropolis bought SP Plus a little over a year ago.
Yeah.
I will say this on the data, that on everybody that signs up to the new platform, you have the option to opt out of any data requirements, if you will. So when you go on the website, would you like to opt out of the data? If you don't want your data to be used within their platform, they are the owners of the data, then you can opt out. So they do give that option to every customer.
Well, and this can be in the report back or
Sure.
at some point, but like one of the concerns I have would be anybody who would just drive in without either paying or
Sure.
that kind of thing. Like what type of
So the data, the technology that we've installed is LPR data, which zaps your license plate when you come into the garage. They have about 15 minutes to either pay or process the payment. If they don't, then it alerts it to our enforcement vehicles, which also have the LPR equipment.
Okay.
And then it pings and says there is a person on the first floor of Market Garage who hasn't paid. Our LPR vehicle goes up there, and then we issue a citation. There's no free parking, so.
Yes.
Okay, but I'll be glad to give you any more reports if so.
Thank you, Mr.
Can he say the rates? The rates
Yeah,
to
they-
park? Because a lot of people,
Update the rates.
and like I've had a lot of people get really confused on like what's ours still
Yeah.
and what's not ours, and they're like, I paid $25, and I'm like, that was not to us.
Yeah, so just a quick little
Exactly.
rundown of
And
the
I
rate
try to tell
system.
people.
Okay, here we go.
So the private market, which owns 98% of the surface lots downtown, which is not publicly run, which we don't own those. One Premium runs those lots. They have dynamic pricing, which is a supply and demand type of market system pricing. For instance, if they feel as though the demand is high in Roanoke, they have the ability to offset that through a higher price in the free market economy. Unfortunately, we can't control that as a municipality, but our rates are flat rates. We do not do dynamic pricing. And for if you are going into a transient parking, means you're coming into a garage for an event, the max daily rate, so you could park there overnight, it's only $8. So it's 50 cents for the first half an hour, if that gives you an idea. So it'd be between 50 cents and $8, which is drastically less than the private market downtown. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mann. So we are going to be in recess for our closed meetings, and then we'll reconvene this evening at 7:00 p.m. for our next council meeting.